This video will explain the entire timeline of Doom, including the main canonical timeline, which includes the events of Doom 1, 2, Final Doom, 64, The Dark Ages, Doom 2016, and Eternal, as well as the alternate universes of Doom seen in Doom 3 and Doom RPG 1 and 2. As always, like the video if you enjoy and subscribe if you're new. Feel free to check out my other story-related content, whether that's explanation videos like this or my analyses and retrospectives. If you'd like to support me further, you can also donate to the Patreon linked in the description. And with that out of the way, let's get started. So to begin, I'd like to talk about the ancient history of Doom before we delve into the games, so as to set the stage a little. So the world of Doom first begins with a being known as Davoth. He is considered to be the first being to ever exist, and thus is the creator of all things. One of the first things he created was the world of Jakad. Jakad is both the oldest and first world in existence, a single dimension that connects to all other places. Davoth seemed to enjoy watching his creations, but one thing continued to bother him. Davoth, being the creator of existence, had also achieved immortality, but he longed to give this power to his creations. But no matter how hard he tried, the beings of Jakad were never able to become immortal. Frustrated at the revelation, Davoth created a race of beings known as the Makyrs. Using their machine minds, they worked in unison to solve this problem for Davoth. After some time, the Makyrs did learn the secrets of immortality. Davoth was infallible after all, so it was only a matter of time that something he created would succeed. He was, however, unaware that his creations had conspired against him. While the Makyrs did determine the true nature of immortality, they believed that such a power was too dangerous for Davoth to have control over, even deeming him a threat to all life. The Makyrs then acted in secret to seal Jakad and Davoth away. Along with this, they also changed history by rewriting the roles of the Makyrs and Davoth. According to the Makyr history, the first being in existence was a man known as the Father. New realities were created wherever he walked, even Urdak, the Makyr homeworld. He used the world of Urdak to experiment with his powers until he created Jakad. The Father then created Davoth to serve as a steward to the realm of Jakad. He was considered a prime evil, the first of the Father's gods, beings of such magnitude that only one could exist in a single realm, lest their combined power create chaos amongst its inhabitants. However, Davoth had wanted to give his people the power of immortality and would stop at nothing to do so. Fearing that Davoth would not only challenge the Makyrs but even the Father himself, the Father had locked Davoth and Jakad away. The Father knew that what he did had to be done, despite how much it disappointed him, but he vowed to never make such a mistake again, so going forward, all his creations would be blessed with misfortune and pain, so that these beings would know the beauty of peace and empathy. You can't appreciate the good days without going through a couple of bad ones after all. Now, just to clarify once more, none of this is true. The Father did not create Davoth, it was the other way around. The Makyrs were worried about Davoth's power and did seal him away, but the story of the Father being the real creator of all things is false. Once again, Davoth had created the Makyrs to solve the problem of immortality. The Makyrs did solve it, but feared that their creator Davoth would be a threat to life itself. So they locked their creator in Jakad and threw away the key, so to speak. When Davoth had finally learned of what became of him and Jakad, he was enraged. Davoth and his vengeance then became known as the Dark Lord, and his hatred consumed not only him, but the world of Jakad, transforming it into a whole new realm, a realm with a name we are much more familiar with: Hell. Afterward, the Father instructed his people to take his own life sphere and put it at the Ingmar Sanctum, which is also where they put Davoth's, leaving the Dark Lord and the Father without a physical form. But Davoth, being the creator of all things, couldn't possibly be considered dead or defeated simply because he lacked a physical form. No, he was still very much a threat to the Makyr way of life, but his plans would take many years to bear fruit, so we'll return to this later. In the meantime, let's discuss the Makyrs and the other places of importance in the world of Doom. As stated earlier, the Makyrs were a race of beings created by Davoth. Their homeworld is the world of Urdak. As they were one of the first beings created by Davoth, their civilizations are incredibly old, far beyond anything on record. According to the scraps of info that exist, it seems as though the Makyrs seem to have regarded the Father as the top authority. The Makyrs also suffer from biological and mental degradation, at which point they undergo a transfiguration process, where they allow a voluntary death and resurrection that is somehow tied to the power of the Father. This transfiguration process is notable for one particular reason. A being within Makyr society is the Khan Makyr. Every 10,000 years a singularity occurs, which births a Khan Makyr. The Khan Makyr contains the processes of every living and dead Makyr in existence. They are bound to lead all of Urdak until they die, and their supreme power gives them complete authority. Even if a Makyr disagreed with the Khan, they could not. Every maker is connected in a collective consciousness, so the Khan Maker basically speaks for all makers, and no other maker can deviate from their orders, no matter how hard they try. This system continued without fail for untold amounts of time, until very recently. While the Father himself is without a form, the makers seem to seek out a building called the Lunarium, which allows them to call upon the Father to answer their pleas. However, it's also noted that sometime after its construction, the Seraphim, the Father's most loyal servant, had stolen the essence of the Father from the Luminarium, taking the consciousness of the Father with him, which, as we know, was so that his life sphere could be moved to the Ingmar Sanctum. Without the Father for guidance, it led to a bug, so to speak, in the Maker code. A new Khan Maker could not be created, so the current Khan Maker now holds this role indefinitely, and her current plan is trying to solve the transfiguration process. Along with the Makers was a race of beings known as the Argenta. According to ancient Sentinel texts, the homeworld of the Sentinels was Argent Denur. Before man first spoke, an immense shard of rock and metal known as the World Sphere was cast onto the world. This spear was so large and so destructive that it carved a hole from the North Pole to the south. In its wake, the first beings, known as Wraiths, arose. From them, the biosphere was created. Flora and fauna alike were created from their Wraith call. One of the first beings created by the Wraiths were the Ancestrals, large behemoths who waged war with each other. Wars between the Ancestrals were so powerful and never-ending that in their wake, they tore the land asunder and destroyed all creation. Soon after, the Wraiths used their Wraith call once more and created the Argenta, although in-game they are mostly referred to as the Sentinels. The Sentinels learned the ways of the sword and steel and took the fight to the Ancestrals, defeating them in combat and staking their claim as leaders of this dominion. And thus, the time of man came to be. During the time of man, the Sentinels made much progress. They created the Hallowed Palace on the Obsidian Throne, crowned King Ormuro the Father as their first in line, and created the Order of Daig, whose priests paid tribute to the Wraiths and appeased their ravenous hunger. But peace was not always certain in the lands of Argent Denur. Many rival tribes came to threaten the Sentinels, but many of those who were confident and strong fought back against these hostiles who threatened their ways of life, which gave birth to the Order of the Night Sentinels. Sometime in the future, the Sentinel people had gotten a surprise visit from the Makers. They came bearing gifts and sought to bring everlasting order to Argent Denur. Through the Makers, they were able to ensure that the Sentinels live on eternally in times of peace. They gained immense knowledge and strength from their ways, and because of this, women, children, and warriors alike were all welcomed by the Makers. Because of their overwhelmingly generous hospitality, the Sentinels adopted many of the Makers' holy doctrines, which were given in exchange for their souls having a chance to earn eternal rest in Urdak when they came to pass. The Sentinels loved the Makers so much that they forsook the teachings of the first ones, the Wraiths, now believing that the Makers' guidance is what would bring them to a new, prosperous era. Now there is obviously much more story than just this. Much of this though will be discussed in due time. For now, these make up the main locations and worlds of Doom. It also should be noted for the sake of clarity that these places don't exist in the same space. To speak plainly a bit, it's very clear that Urdak and Shakad are meant to represent heaven and hell from biblical texts. While they aren't meant to be taken one-to-one from the Christian Bible, their existence as worlds operates much the same. Urdak and Shakad are not just planets you could travel to, in the same way we can't take a spaceship to heaven. Urdak and Shakad are two different planes of existence, with Urdak being the higher plane of existence and Shakad naturally being one of lower existence. Argent Denur and the Sentinels are the only ones who aren't explicitly mentioned this way. So Argent Denur may be another planet in the solar system, but the games have yet to reveal that info. But with the backstory now taken care of, let's jump into the first game and see how this story progresses from here, starting with Doom 1. Doom 1 stars main protagonist, Doomguy. Doomguy is one of Earth's toughest soldiers. 3 years ago, he assaulted his commanding officer for ordering his soldiers to fire upon civilians. This got the commanding officer sent to Pearl Harbor, while Doomguy was sent to Mars. Mars is mainly owned by the UAC, or the Union Aerospace Corporation, a multi-planetary conglomerate with radioactive waste facilities on Mars and its 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos. Because of its isolated nature, Doomguy spends his days, quote, sucking dust and watching restricted flicks in the rec room. His actions, while valiant, seem to have gotten him demoted, but all of that was about to change very soon. Taken right from the manual, quote, for the last 4 years, the military, UAC's biggest supplier, has used remote facilities on Phobos and Deimos to conduct various secret projects, including research on interdimensional space travel. So far, they've been able to open gateways between Phobos and Deimos, throwing a few gadgets into one and watching them come out the other. Recently, however, the gateways have grown dangerously unstable. Military volunteers entering them have either disappeared or been stricken with a strange form of insanity, babbling vulgarities, bludgeoning anything that breathes, and finally suffering an untimely death of full-body explosion. Matching heads with torsos to send home to the folks became a full-time job. Latest military reports state that the research is suffering a small setback, but everything is under control. A few hours ago, Mars received a garbled message from Phobos. Quote, "We require immediate military support. Something fraggin' evil is coming out of the gateways. Computer systems have gone berserk." The rest was incoherent. Soon afterwards, Deimos simply vanished from the sky. Since then, attempts to establish contact with either moon have been unsuccessful. Doomguy and his fellow Marines then suit up and head to Phobos. Doomguy was tasked with securing the perimeter while the rest of the men went inside to see what went down. Hours of near constant screams and gunfire from the radio convinced Doomguy to head inside to help, but the assault teams took all the heavy weapons and the radio had gone silent. Doomguy doesn't know it yet, but the armies of hell have invaded. So with no backup and nothing but a pistol, Doomguy plans to save the station from this unknown entity, or at least, die trying. Doomguy is then greeted by some unsightly horrors. Many of the corpses left behind to rot are those of his fellow men, while those who aren't dead are seen possessed, wielding their weapons against their own. According to the Doom Bible, these possessed men seem to have been possessed in their sleep, although this may not account for all these men and may be just one of the many ways a human can be possessed. But these aren't the only enemies Doomguy will come across. There are also the Imps, brown humanoid creatures that throw fireballs at a distance and have nasty claw attacks when up close. They are the most common type of creature in hell and are often used as cannon fodder to break defenses. Demons, sometimes referred to as Pinkies due to their lack of an official name and unique coloration, are often quoted as being sort of like a shaved gorilla except with horns, a big head, lots of teeth, and harder to kill. They even have a translucent variant known as the Spectre, which is almost invisible to the naked eye. Then there are the Lost Souls. These souls belong to those of the mortal world, who died and were sent to live in eternity in hell. For many in hell, a torturous existence is all that awaits them. Those whose bodies became too weak and brittle to perform labor while in hell can still serve their hellish overlords in death once more, as they are taken to the pits to have their souls extracted for further use. Those whose souls escape this process become lost souls. Souls given a physical form filled with nothing but rage, haunted by past memories from their former life, roaming the lands of hell looking for an end to their miserable existence. And the final enemies for now are the cacodemons. They, while unremarkable in terms of intelligence, are driven by their insatiable hunger, using their large mandibles to eat any human they come across. Making it deeper into the moon base, Doomguy eventually comes across a few oddly placed totems that certainly weren't there before meeting with one of Hell's ferocious warriors, the Baron of Hell. Within Hell is an army of Hell Knights, with the strongest among them being crowned the Baron of Hell. Once it's defeated, Doomguy steps through a portal only to be ambushed by the forces of Hell. Left for dead, Doomguy wakes up on Deimos. He assumed that the invasion had been stopped, but in reality it had only just begun. The place he ends up in stinks of rotten meat, and he can't find the exit, so the only way to go is forward. Deimos, like its brother Phobos, has also been overrun with the enemies of Hell, but the place is noticeably more demonic, with pentagrams, ritual sites, and blood rivers. Something's not right here. Surely Deimos wasn't like this before, right? The deeper he goes into Deimos, the worse it gets. Whole structures built from marble are seen overtaking the base. This seems to imply that either the UAC had built these structures and subsequently knew what was on the other side of the gateways they were making, or our enemies have decided to make themselves at home. Further in, there are more of these new marble structures, but now with dozens of corpses lining the walls and floors. There are even faces and vertebrae-like walls with attached flesh. Worst of all, there's even a few barons hanging from the wall. What could have possibly done this? At the very end of this nightmare is the Cyber Demon, a strong, powerful beast that towers over everything it comes across. The Cyber Demon was the ruler of Deimos, but now that it's dead, its grip on the station is gone. With both stations saved, Doomguy celebrates, for he is triumphant, only to quickly wonder where he ended up. The sky looks nothing like space, so where is he? Peering over the edge, he learns the truth. Deimos is floating above Hell itself. This is when it really starts to set in. While these armies of demons seem like something straight out of Hell, it wasn't clear until now that they are actually from Hell. The UAC had managed to not only find Hell and its forces, but also gave them a direct route straight to humanity's front gate. This worries Doomguy. He's heard the tales before. No one ever escapes Hell. But to be fair, no one has ever fought the armies of Hell like he has, so there is a first for everything. So without a second thought, he rappels down to the surface of Hell to confront the evil mastermind behind the invasion. Making his way to the main stronghold, Doomguy confronts the Spider Mastermind, and like the Baron and Cyber Demon before them, is defeated swiftly and efficiently. As the Spider Demon falls to its mechanical knees, a doorway opens up, revealing a gateway back to Earth. He then steps through the portal to Earth, relieved that the invasion didn't make it out of Mars, only to step through and arrive at a war-torn Earth. It's now officially Hell on Earth. Billions were killed in the initial attacks, and worst of all, Doomguy's pet rabbit Daisy was one of the casualties. In a fit of rage, Doomguy swears revenge on its armies and kills many of its minions in the process, many of which were sent by the Spider Mastermind before its death. Despite his short-lived victory here, the demons have won the war, as Earth has been ravaged and picked clean by its forces. Which brings us to Doom 2. Doom 2 picks up right where we left off. Billions of Earth's population have been killed at the hands of the demons. Most of what's left of humanity attempts to escape to the stars using some nearby spaceships. But the last ground spaceport on Earth has been taken over by demons who put up a force field, preventing any ship from taking off or landing. So Doomguy plans to put a stop to these demons, so that the ship holding what's left of Earth's population can live. He knew that he could do it, but Hell wasn't going to let him off easy, not after last time. Its forces came with a few new enemies yet to be seen by Doomguy, such as the Hell Knight and Arachnotrons, which are lesser versions of the Baron of Hell and Spider Mastermind respectively. Then there was the Revenants, demons who have previously fallen in battle and were revived and strapped with combat gear to go fight again. The next enemy is the Mancubi, demons who from a young age are fitted with light armor plating. Over time though, their grotesque form is said to outgrow their armor, exposing much of their body and face. As they grow older, chitinous growths begin to form on each hand, creating a hardened barrel, so to speak. As the flesh inside these barrels decomposes, a noxious odor begins to clump inside, which they can use as a weapon, shooting it across long distances. Then there is the Pain Elemental, similar in stature to its brother the Cacodemon, with the added complexity of it being able to summon lost souls. It was born in the Umbral Plains and is descended from the primal abominable depths of the demon world. All it knows is its own torment, as it is cursed to create lost souls from within its gut, a process that is both excruciatingly painful and unending. For this reason, its only source of relief is projecting that pain onto others. And then finally, there is the Archvile. The Archvile is feared among lesser demons for its innate ability to channel and manipulate the unholy powers of hell magic. With its superior power and intelligence, it can summon fire at a target's feet, resurrect demons who have fallen in battle, and even summon demons to fight for them at will. After going through various sewer tunnels and office buildings, all while making sure no demon is left standing, Doomguy could find the source of the barrier and shut it down for good. Content with his victory, thankful that he survived long enough to save humanity, and realizing he's the only human left on Earth, he sits down and relaxes for the first time since the invasion began, awaiting his imminent demise, for it does not matter whether he lives or dies. As long as humanity is safe, nothing else matters. But soon after, a message from Earth Control comes through on the comms. Sensors have located the source of the alien invasion. If you go there, you may be able to block their entry. The alien base is in the heart of your own city, not far from the starport. So, slowly and painfully, he gets back up, and sets out to defeat the evil once more. Doomguy then finds himself shifting through tall skyscrapers in the streets of his hometown, all of which have been overtaken by the demons. However, Doomguy soon realizes that the source of the corruption that infests Earth cannot be destroyed, at least on his side. So, realizing what he must do, he clenches his teeth and hops through a gateway and back down to Hell. After going through it once more, he comes face to face with the Icon of Sin, a massive being whose face can only be seen. Despite its seemingly impenetrable form, its exposed brain leaves it open to a volley of rockets. As the rockets hit its brain, it screams in pain, thrashing its limbs so wildly that it shakes Hell's surface. Doomguy has done it again. He has defeated the demons and saved Earth. Those on the space shuttle are likely very happy now that they are no longer in imminent danger, so they decide to head back to Earth. In the meantime, Doomguy goes on cleanup duty. He found evidence of more demons still on Earth, one who is also notably trying to reopen the gateway to Hell again, who was then killed shortly after. Sometime after these events, the UAC then found themselves in trouble once more. Doomguy had learned of a remote base in Hell that was created by the UAC. The ancient scriptures called it the Visago's Rest, but many of the UAC call it New Eden. The place was entirely devoid of demonic presence, so the UAC used this opportunity to strike it big and bring in its unnatural resources. But in doing so, they managed to awaken the ones beneath, who swallowed the UAC base in mere hours. The UAC then played their ace in the hole, and hired Doomguy to reclaim the base and preserve the legacy of the UAC. Upon reaching the base, he finds a gateway portal that opens to Hell, allowing him access to the source. As he fights through the forces, he is ambushed by the Visago. They take his limp, barely conscious body and throw him into a cell, only for Doomguy to escape and continue his journey forward. Putting past the sanguine waste in the coiled city, Doomguy finds the Soul Silo. It seems as though the UAC was taking the toxic waste and using these resources to resupply their company. They are a waste facility first and foremost. It's possible that they were then turning this into energy of some kind, possibly in an attempt to regain the energy that was lost during the invasion. Making it deeper into the plant, Doomguy finds the remains of those who died defending the base, as well as the massive missile silos the base had left behind. Doomguy, realizing he could kill two birds with one stone, sets the missiles to self-destruct and escapes through the gateway before it can go off, destroying this pocket of hell and the UAC's base, believing both to be a threat to mankind. Following the attack on Earth, the UAC went under some much-needed reconstruction. The government had ordered the UAC to be under its watchful eye, lest they cause another invasion. Despite the worst-case scenario, that being another invasion, the government still allowed the UAC to continue their experiments, believing that their new methods of defense would suffice. They ordered all experiments into gateways in matter appropriation to be done on Jupiter's moon Io instead of Mars's. They believed that the increased distance would keep the demons away from Earth, and the extra muscle they hired to defend these bases was sure to stop any possible invasion. What could possibly go wrong? Well, for a time, nothing, actually. Soon after the UAC opened its first gate, the demons of hell came pouring out. But those of the United States Space Marine Corps were ready and able to defeat those demons of hell without issue. But success breeds boldness. Over time, the experiments became more dangerous and less cautious. Months after the initial experiment, an unidentified ship posing as the base's yearly supply ship arrived early. Instead of landing, though, it hovered over the base. Its wide frame was multiple kilometers long, completely overshadowing the base. And then, within an instant, its doors as large as football fields opened, letting out all the demons it had kept on board. Only one person survived this incident, a man known as the Marine Commander. Given that Doomguy was also a Marine and likely stayed as one after the events of the game, it's heavily implied that we are still playing as Doomguy. Doomguy had managed to survive because he was simply not near the base when the attack happened. He was walking along the rough landscape of Io when he heard a noise behind him. Turning around, he was greeted by a demon of hell. Realizing what this means, he rushed back to the base only to find the ship still floating above it. Upon arriving, he found all of his fellow soldiers, the ones that he had trained, dead. Vowing to get revenge for them, Doomguy once again sets out to defeat Hell and stop this invasion before it's too late. Doomguy then fights through all the different areas of the base, from the labs to storage to shipping and processing, only to come face to face with the Demon Spitter. It's seemingly related to the Icon of Sin from the invasion back on Earth, making its death more important than ever. Thankfully, both are cut from the same cloth, meaning both go down the same way. A well-placed rocket shot to the brain finishes it off for good. As the dark sky turned back to its normal color and the demons evaporated into the air, Doomguy believed he had won. But something rumbled in the skull of the Demon Spitter. Following the events of this attack, the UAC was rebranded and restructured once more, now serving as a company dedicated to preventing invasions from Hell, not starting them. Their first experiment was on quantum accelerators that could close gateways at a distance, preventing all attacks from Hell no matter where they came from. Like before, everything went well, all things considered. Their first test resulted in a gateway opening only to be closed shortly after. None of the demonic forces made it through, and the cyber demon that tried was cut in half. It was a breakthrough, a scientific marvel. Earth could be forever saved by any future invasion, and the people of Earth could live free and comfortable lives. Only for 7 gateways to open up at once the following day. The quantum accelerator did its best to close the gates in time, closing off 6 within the hour, but the demons were too powerful and wiped out those stationed at the base. The quantum accelerator is still inside the base, and the demon known as the Gatekeeper guards the last gate. So Doomguy, along with any available Marines, were sent to the base to close the final gate. Doomguy at the time was on leave, enjoying a nice day on the beach, but as soon as the call came in, he suited up and went straight into action. He managed to get there before anyone else, but he knew that he would be once again left on his own. Backup would arrive within an hour or two, but by then it'd be too late. The demons would have already succeeded in their plans and would be ready to invade Earth again. So he decides to head inside and finish it himself. Going through the base, he meets with the Gatekeeper, another of the Icon of Sin's ilk, and like before, stops them the exact same way. Suddenly, all was silent. The tattered corpse of the Gatekeeper formed an inverted gate that sucked down all the shards of the last prototype accelerator, as well as any remaining demons in the area. Doomguy had done it again. He had won, and humanity was saved. Following these events, Doomguy went under some tests and treatments. He was the only one to stop Hell 3 separate times after all. All of these tests and questions meant nothing to him, but it's clear that these invasions had affected him greatly. He was suffering from severe PTSD, continuously having nightmares of the demons he did battle with so many times in the past. Doomguy would never be able to have a normal life again. No one could under those circumstances. He was good at one thing: killing demons. It was all he could do, and it's all he ever did. Without that, he wasn't the same. Well, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, he would find that purpose in life he had thought lost. New planetary policy dictated a complete sweep and removal of all facilities related to Hell experimentation. All of them were doused in apocalyptic levels of radiation, so that nothing could get in or out. All the info related to the research into Gateway Tech, and anything detailing the events of the invasion was classified under the codename Doom. But while the documents were compiled with the intent of closing the book on this chapter in history, its final words had yet to be written. Within a facility, covered head to toe in radiation, lay a demon immune to radiation that was able to escape detection. In its feebled, weakened state, it rose up and resurrected all the demons, returning them to their original forms, although with some noticeably more deformed and even stronger than the others. As the only survivor of the Doom episodes, Doomguy was sent in to stop them. It's another invasion, and another chance of humanity being wiped out. But he doesn't mind. Hell's back on the menu, and he couldn't be more pleased. While fighting, he finds a portal to Hell, just like all the portals in the past. He found it familiar, yet he cackled at its presence. The demons were tempting him. They wanted him to come to their domain, to fight on their terms. He was more than willing to oblige. Reaching its core, he was greeted by the Mother Demon, the one who was responsible for resurrecting all the demons. With the help of his arsenal, including a weapon he found called the Makyr, he was able to defeat the Mother Demon without breaking a sweat. As blood poured from his eyes, he stood there in defiance, for he had conquered evil once again. But instead of calling it a day and returning home, Doomguy knew there was no home to return to. Hell had completely changed his mind, warped him into a killing machine, feasting for nothing but demon blood. His home was on the battlefield, and between the fireballs and rockets was where he felt most alive. But he still kept a semblance of humanity within him, the one that he carried throughout his entire life, the part of him that never wavered, the part of him that knew that humanity needed a hero, and that he was their savior. So he decided to stay in Hell to make sure that no demon could ever raise its hand against Earth again. But upon entering Hell, he was discovered by a sister of the Mother Demon, the Sister Resurrector. The Sister Resurrector had sent him back out of Hell, fearing that he would indeed complete his goal of utter conquest. But Doomguy had managed to fight through her forces and take her out too. With nothing stopping him, all that was left was him and a near infinite supply of demons ready to greet him, in what would become a perpetual path of torment, a path through doom. Here is where the Doomguy would finally begin his one-man quest against Hell. Here is where our Doomguy would become the Doomslayer. For a time, peace continued under the Makyrs and Sentinels, but soon that peace would come to pass. Davoth, while merely a sphere, still held more power than you'd think, especially since the father kept a shard of his essence in Urdak. To start his revenge, he planted many seeds across the minds of the Makyrs, chief among them being the Khan Makyr herself. He convinced her that a chosen one would threaten her rule. The Khan Makyr had then conversed with King Rowan of the Sentinels at his throne. She warned him of a great schism that would take place in the heart of his own kingdom, basically parroting much of what she was told by the Dark Lord. The Khan Makyr, through her everlasting and wondrous guidance, had even offered to help. The Dark Lord had convinced the Khan Makyr to create a device called the Divinity Machine. It was powered using the shard that the father had left behind on Urdak. She would take his people to the Divinity Machine, said to purge any impurities from their flock, ensuring that no one could betray the Sentinels, but more importantly, so that Urdak would be left unharmed. But as she came to learn, the Dark One was never found, but that was all part of the plan. Sometime around here, Doomguy had entered the portal back in Doom 64. It's unclear how long he roamed Hell or where he went, but at some point in time, he was found by the Sentinels. They found him in a broken state, bloodied, clawed, and near death, only mumbling about a great evil. By Sentinel law, he would be placed in the Colosseum and judged if he was worthy enough. Despite being considered an outlander, he gained favor amongst the crowd. His methods were crude and brutal, but he charged at his enemies like a true sentinel. Screams could be heard from the stands, and banners donning his symbols flew around the edges of the arena, all while onlookers screamed "Rip and tear" as Doomguy pushed through his injuries. His incredible skill had easily earned him a place not just among the Sentinels, but also a brief visit from the Khan Makyr herself. Hearing of his exploits and his peculiar rage, she instructed the Sentinels to learn his language, and figure out what these hellish creatures he mumbled about were. But that was when things started to change. Not so long after, the world of Argent and Ur came under siege from Hell. Like we've seen many times before, they came not in ships nor boats, but through swirling portals that connected to their dimension. And it was here that the unholy wars had begun. Unfortunately for the Sentinels and Makyrs, triumph did not come easily, nor consistently. They had not fought an enemy like this before. Many of their foes had weapons, but these demons conjure magic straight from their very being. The Order of Daig, though, had managed to make some progress. The priests had captured some of these creatures and discovered the existence of essence. The life essence these hellish beings carried with them was able to power their attacks and twist their forms. The Order of Dag also learned that this essence provided some necessary benefits for their cause. It had the power to heal, to mend, to grant immortality, to impart knowledge, and to enlighten faculties beyond their understanding. With this essence, no sentinel could get sick, and no Makyr could die from transfiguration. A new age under their rule could be born, one where they not only had true balance over Hell and its legions, but also one where they ruled over space and time, both in this world and in others, dictating the laws and orders of things as they saw fit. So with this knowledge in mind, the Sentinels and the Makyrs got to work and took the fight to the demons. While they were all skilled in their own way, Doomguy was the one who knew them personally. Having defended Earth and its people many times, their mere existence drove him into a rage, for he knew they must die. Despite this, he was still just a prisoner to them. However, the recent king, King Novik, noticed that he survived far longer than any Sentinel-born prisoner had, and that his rage had matched their own passions for battle. So King Novik offered him a chance to train amongst the Night Sentinels. As time passed, Doomguy was instructed to learn their teachings. He read the codified matrices of the Order and their ancient lessons on battle and brotherhood. It was through this that something stirred within Doomguy. He could sense the future, and he saw the opportunities laid out in front of him. Soon, Hell would fear his wrath once more. Satisfied with his fighting prowess, the Sentinels granted him his wish. They, with Doomguy and their company, passed through the Hell Gates to battle the forces of Hell. Many times he would find himself injured and exhausted, but he asked for no help, and they offered none in return. They journeyed into Hell 3 times, and each time he came back ready for more. As time went on, the Sentinels grew respect for him, no longer seeing him as an outlander or a conscript, but now as an ally, a weapon, a brother. The war had started to tip into the Sentinels' favor. Better, the priest from the Order of Dag had finally concocted the elixir, created from the essence of the demons. This empowered them, and they reached for more and more dimensions, even ones thought beyond their grasp, but Hell was always one step ahead. The blood came from the Hell Gates and flooded many of their cities. The armies of Hell even brought with them a titan known as the Dreadnought, a beast whose size and ferocity could rival even the mightiest ancestrals that first set foot on their land. The beast had torn through everything in its path, stopping at absolutely nothing, all except for one. The titan and its horde approached the holy city of Taras Nabad. They had wiped out so many temples and people that the Sentinels were pushed back to the arena. That wasn't until Doomguy appeared. "Rip and tear," he shouted as he joined his brothers in arms. But this is when the Dark Lord would continue the next step in his plan. See, the Titan was still a powerful beast. It would not go down easily. Around this time, the Seraphim had also been convinced of something, just like the Khan Maker was. Knowing what he must do, he took Doomguy aside and had him step inside the divinity machine. While it could weaken those who stepped inside, it also had the opposite effect. Doomguy then stepped into the machine and was granted power like no other. He rose from the coffin, eyes burning with Maker magic. He took the crucible in his hands, and wraith fire had leapt forth from the blade, something granted to only the true Sentinel warriors. In their darkest hour he had been chosen. The stranger had been blessed with celestial might, and from that day forth, the stranger would be known as the Slayer. But while the Slayer was allied with the Sentinels, he was not friends with them, merely colleagues, if you will, against a common enemy. While he would not attack them, he would also not sit idly by, chatting and making friends. There was never a time where he wasn't fighting demons, so sometimes he would journey into Hell alone. During one of these trips, he met a being known as the Wretch. The Wretch created his iconic Praetor suit. The Wretch is never seen in games, so we can only speculate on who they are. The Slayer suit also changes as the games go on, so it's unclear if the Wretch makes adjustments in between games, or if the Slayer does them himself. But the Wretch did also mark his armor with the Mark of the Beast. This is a logo seen on his armor, shield, and the intros of Doom 2016 and Eternal. Its origin and significance is also not fully understood. Text from in-game claims that the mark was placed on his sarcophagus in Doom 2016, so as to serve as a warning to never open it. But other than that, its significance is not clear. But I've always seen it as this. When we think of Hell, we think of Satan, pentagrams, and other demonic imagery. The number 666 is synonymous with Hell and Satanism. To me, the Slayer's Mark of the Beast seems to take from this idea. Whereas humans see pentagrams and shiver in terror at the thought of demons, the demons see the Slayer's mark and shiver in terror at the thought of him. It's a way to represent him, his wrath, his anger, his hatred for all demon kind. A logo that could be passed down and talked about like an old folktale or legend, so that it will terrify any demon who is unfortunate enough to eventually see it in person. Regardless of its origins though, the Slayer would still fight Hell alone, for the most part, as the Sentinels were often spotted fighting side by side with the Slayer against their common enemy. Atlamex were also brought inside the hellish dimension to overwhelm them fully. Enhanced with Makyr tech and the essence that came from their very enemies they killed, the Sentinels make quick work of any demon in their path. The demons of hell, once thought to be ferocious beasts who feared nothing, now feared one man. But things would soon change once more. Born in the shadow pits of hell's blackest citadel was a being known as Prince Azric. He stood before the Elder Council of Hell with ambition, for he did not fear the Slayer. By ancient blood oath he would be in command of the hordes of hell. Together with a witch from a realm far beyond ours, he would set out to achieve the impossible. Defeat the Sentinels of Argent Dinur and kill the Slayer. While Hell has always had a vast amount of forces at its disposal, few leaders could surpass the power of Hell that came from Prince Azric's reign. While many of those from Hell returned, new forces were added to the roster. Variations of the standard imp had continued to evolve, sprouting much tougher and meaner imps with stone skin, while also being noticeably taller, even coming with their own invisible variation. Pinkies can be seen with riders atop them who shoot arrows from afar. Neither Pinky nor Rider are considered worthy to Prince Azric, instead being seen as fodder. While both Rider and Pinky continue to butt heads, many a Sentinel have seen Pinkies devour their own riders in the middle of combat. Azric had also recruited many cyber demons to his army, but fearing rebellion, severed the tendons of their wings, grounding them in the process. The prince had also brought with him large beasts from other worlds. Many years ago, on their home planet, the Titans were seen as kind, simple beings. That was before Hell enslaved them into their ranks. The same goes for the Agadon Hunters, who were noble beast hunters that also found themselves taken by Hell. But the Titans specifically could serve their master even in death, as their remains are used to create the Hell ships and Hell tanks in Azric's army. All of this alongside two species known for their love of the hunt, the Vargrays and the Komodos, easily making Azric's army the deadliest force of Hell we've seen so far. During this time, the Makers had also started to recognize not just the potential of the Slayer, but his unpredictability, for he was only allied with them by pure happenstance. He didn't recognize the Makers as the one true god, nor did he devote his life to the Sentinel way of life, compared to the others from Argent Dinur. He was a vicious and unrelenting third party, one whose unpredictability was considered too dangerous to let free. Through a deal made by King Novik and the Makers, they created a tether that attached itself to the Slayer's suit, which allowed the Makers to command him. They removed many functions from his brain, except those related to the killing. He was a killing machine, but now he was their killing machine. The Slayer would then be stationed aboard the ship of Creed Maker, waiting to be called into battle. He was called into the village of Kalim, and was successful in stopping much of the horde that had overwhelmed its land. But Prince Azric had the upper hand, for see, his real goal was the Heart of Argent, an ancient piece of Sentinel history that is said to have immense power. But simply walking into Sentinel territory without a plan would be a fool's errand. The prince was able to convince the many settlers of Argent Dinur to join forces with Hell, subsequently betraying their own comrades by opening up portals inside Sentinel land. And by utilizing Hell's practically unlimited resources, he sent wave after wave towards the barrier station located on Hebeth, and through sheer numbers was able to shut down the barrier, meaning they no longer needed to sneak their way in and could just walk right through. He would also seek to exploit the troubles of an Argent priest. A priest known as Daig Lork was married to a commoner, something considered forbidden by those of Daig priesthood. Prince Azric would seek to corrupt her very body and soul. Pleading for peace to be delivered to her soul, he would give up the location of the heart to the prince as a part of their deal. To further increase his odds, he would send a distraction team to the Sentinel barracks, so that the Sentinels would be too preoccupied to defend their holy city, where the heart was truly stationed. Our Slayer was stationed at this barracks and would defend it effortlessly, only to learn of the true target of the attack. He would then run to the Drake helmet set atop his dragon Sarat. The Sentinel barracks was considered an important place within Sentinel culture. The barracks would train many soldiers, and many up-and-coming warriors were expected to make pilgrimages there to prove their strength and resilience. On the other side of the valley, though, sat the Drake Helm, where the Sentinels would train their dragons for combat. Sarat was a wildcard amongst their contemporaries. They cared very little for the Sentinels and the other dragons. But one day during a fearsome battle, Sarat was injured, only to be saved by the Slayer. From then on, they only listened to the commands of the Slayer, and the two have become inseparable ever since. The Slayer would then ride to the holy city of Aratum to confront the prince and his forces head-on. He was successful in stopping the initial assault that had made their way past its walls. But the prince and the witch had already made it to the heart. Knowing he would be outmatched, the king took the heart and activated explosives that were attached to the holy city. The plan was to trap the prince and the witch inside the holy city, while it was brought down along with them. With that, the day had been won. If you can call it a win, because every victory comes with a cost. The holy city housed numerous archives, some of which dated back to the old days of the Ancestrals and Wraiths. That knowledge being lost would strike a heavy blow to the scholars who had worked so hard to preserve and learn its writings, so as to always remember the foundation of their history. The archives have now ironically become a footnote in another archive that will soon catalog the events of this war, should they live to see the end of it. The king and the sentinels then fell back to the city of Terath and erected another large barrier to keep hell outside their walls. But the prince would soon find them and send all of his forces to finally finish the job. Back at the Makyr ship, the Slayer is viewing the monitor above him, showing an aerial view of the city. Hell is closing in, and fast. He is then seen twitching, fighting with all his might to break free from this tether. As he continues to stare at the monitor, he can hear the screams of people dying, pleading for help. Whether it's from those on the ground or just voices in his head is unclear, but it's a sound he knows all too well. Through his strength and determination, he then breaks free from the tether, finally granting the freedom he hasn't had in a long time. But the Makyrs had planned for this. They set up weighted floors that slowed him down immensely, along with guns pointed at him should he break free. Realizing the tether could come back online, the Slayer attempts to rip it out of his suit. Should it be removed, that tether will cause an explosion unlike anything they've ever seen. So Creed Makyr requests they turn off the tether. The Slayer would be free from his grasp, but he knows that so long as that stays on, a new leash can be put on later. The Slayer is then beamed down to the surface once more to help the Sentinels stave off the incoming waves. He is of course able to hold his own and fight back against Hell. But a Titan appeared and threw an Atlan mech into the barrier, which disabled it. The Slayer then charged inside, looking to mop up any forces that got past, before meeting with the Prince, the Witch, and the King once more. Outnumbered, the King is close to death. The Slayer attempts to stop the Witch, but she is too powerful, and she uses her powers to throw him off the wall. The Slayer then gets up, mans the broken Atlan, and uses its laser to shoot the Prince before he kills the King. Understanding that the table has now been flipped, the Witch teleports herself and the Prince away, while King Novik runs to safety. With him out of commission for now, his daughter Commander Thera steps up. She and the other Sentinels try to get the tether off the Slayer, but they couldn't, so it'll have to stay stuck on him. Now serving as a constant reminder that soon, his master will come for him, prepared with a new leash. But for now, Commander Thera requests that the Slayer head to the Ancestral Forge. He'll need more power if he is to stop the duo. To get to the Forge, he'll have to pass through the Abyssal Forest. The Sentinels commune with their deities here, but when the tendrils of Hell seeped into the realm, thanks to a ritual that started in the forest itself, it twisted the appearance of the forest. Now the forest has been long abandoned, like much of the Sentinel land that has fallen to Hell's corruption. The same goes for the Ancestral Forge. It was built inside the remains of an Ancestral named Eligas, after he was pierced by a mighty sword owned by another Ancestral named Feroc the Mighty. The forge is powered by Eligas' own heart, which uses his blood to power artifacts placed into one of the nearby pools. The Slayer's shield is placed in its waters, granting him access to new runes that can be equipped to his shield. With more power in his hands, the Slayer then makes his way to Hell to confront the Prince. While this is happening, the Prince can be seen talking with Creed Makyr. During the many attacks on the Sentinels' bases, Creed was visited by the Prince who offered his allegiance. Creed Makyr had initially refused, shooting the drone that the Prince had possessed, but it was clear that the thought weighed heavily on his mind. Creed Makyr was alone in this realm. He was the only Makyr in this realm, and was tasked with overseeing the flow of essence from the Sentinels to their homeworld of Urdak. Creed Makyr felt that he had power over the people because of his status and superiority. Many times he questioned whether it was worth sending the Slayer down to help the Sentinels, as he could have easily stayed in their ship to defend them instead. His ego and thirst for powers unknown were immense, but continued to grow even more once the Prince had planted the seeds of an alliance in his mind. After enough deliberation, he conceded and joined forces with them, even willing to offer up the positions of the Slayer and Commander Thera as part of their deal. While a lucrative offer, the Witch had asked that no harm should come to Thera, as her powers could be useful to them later. Knowing that their business is done, and that the Slayer is approaching, all of them flee the castle, just before the Slayer enters his chambers. He's then taken back to the command station as Creed Makyr has requested a meeting. As soon as he arrives, an attack on the station has commenced. This was a plan set up by our duo, now trio, of villains. The Witch summoned a portal from her realm, which launched giant tentacles that took both Creed and Commander Thera with them. The Slayer tries to chase after them, but is too late. His only way forward is to release the only being capable of opening a portal to that realm. Near the waters of Estovia is a place known as the Spear of Nirathal. Underneath it is a colossal prison, created long ago by both the Sentinels and the Wraiths, and is said to house an entity of unknown origin. The seas of the ocean had to be parted in order to contain the creature that's hiding underneath. No records state how they were able to subdue such a creature, only that a weapon beyond comprehension was able to do it. To this day, the creature lies in wait, for it was only a matter of time until its sentence would one day be up. The Slayer then unlocks its shackles and lets the beast roam free. It then immediately conjures a portal to its realm, which prompts the Slayer to hook onto its wings and be brought inside. Where the Slayer ends up is the Cosmic Realm, home to both the Witch and her god, the being he just unleashed, the Old One. The Witch, better known as Ulsamir, was born from the congealed masses of the Cosmic Realm, and is a living conduit for the dark energy coursing through her dimension. As such, her body is but a vessel, a shell to be used so that she may manifest her spirit into the physical world. She joined Prince Azric for a simple reason. She wanted her god, the Old One, to be unleashed from its prison, and to be granted safe passage through the realms as it makes its way back to hers. As payment, she offered up the secrets of the Heart of Argent and whatever ancient powers lied within it. But this alliance is temporary, as each one is using the other for their own gain. Ulsamir only cares about her god and her realm, while the prince pays them no mind, only wanting the secrets and knowledge that she carries. But they did offer each other their forces, even using each other's power to create some unholy creations. The Cosmic Cacodemon and Cosmic Baron took Hell's Cacodemons and Barons of Hell, combined with the powers of the Cosmic Realm, and twisted them into something even more ferocious. While many Argent priests were taken and infected with the powers of the Cosmic Realm, which gave birth to beings known as the Acolytes. The Slayer has to pass through the city of Ryul, the Karthul Marshes, and the Temple of Lamarith, each one containing structures and creatures of unknown origin. The place almost seems to overlap, while time itself seems to have lost all meaning. Along its shores are also many ships, all belonging to people from across the realms, who happen to be caught in the Cosmic Realm's grasp. Their history and identities now washed away with the waters, leaving only their hallowed ships as proof of their existence. Much of the Cosmic Realm is built upon this idea of confusion and unreality, where the deeper you go, the more questions arise. But there is one thing that is known about this place, and that's that the Wraiths, the ancient gods of the Sentinels, once called this place their home. The beings who were considered the first life on Argent Dinur can trace their origins back to the Cosmic Realm, adding a now sinister feeling to their old gods, as what was their plan for the people it created if they initially came from the Cosmic Realm? Were they to be assimilated into the culture, or did the Wraiths merely seek to break away from their people and start anew? It's an answer that, like the Wraiths, has been lost to time. While stumbling through the Cosmic Realm, the Slayer finds a way to Thera's location, which leads to a large temple. Activating a device in the center sees a platform raised, revealing the Old One underneath. The beast then swallows the Slayer whole. Like a bad case of heartburn, the Slayer then gets to work killing the beast from the inside, and attacks its heart with the BFC. There aren't enough Tums in the world that could stop this pain, so the Old One throws up its insides and the Slayer, killing it in the process. The Slayer then meets with Thera, only to be affected by her new powers. As told by the witch, Commander Thera was to remain unharmed, as she is the Heart of Argent. Her power comes from the Wraiths, and because the Wraiths once called this place their home, her powers become fully realized here. Prince Azric took her here so the ritual could be complete, as once it's finished, he would take her power for himself. He then incapacitates the Slayer, beating him down with his own helmet, only to trap him here in the Cosmic Realm, while the prince makes his move against the Sentinels. Seemingly trapped with no way out, the Slayer remembers the tether on his suit. His cage ended up becoming his key, as when he pulls the tether out from his suit, it explodes, breaking the barrier and the beings who were holding it in place. Unfortunately, the Slayer can be counted amongst the casualties, as his limp body falls into the acidic pits of the Cosmic Realm. However, a vision of the Mark of the Beast appears, a logo seen on his armor and shield, while King Novik tells him to rip and tear until it was done. Following this, he wakes up among a pile of corpses, seemingly no better than those around him, as his body and face have partially eroded. Where the Slayer ends up is the Harbor of Souls, a place located within the first layer of Hell. It's designed to take the souls of the damned and usher them onto the barge, so they may be taken to their specific destination within Hell. But the Slayer crosses the Harbor of Souls and commandeers the barge for himself, so that he may drive himself to his own destination.
Payment required.
While this was happening, the Sentinel priests were busy conducting an unholy ritual to get the Slayer back from the land of the dead. As the Slayer enters the bright light at the end of the tunnel, he awakes in a purgatory-like world, before approaching the same marking he saw earlier. As he awakes from the blood-filled coffin, he's greeted by Commander Valen. We see that the Slayer is confused. He's not only just come back from the dead, but the pentagram on the ground suggests that it was the work of demons, and nothing demon-like sits well with him. But ultimately, he takes his helmet and gets right back to work. As he pushes back the forces of Hell, he makes it to Creedmaker's ship. Both know the other's intention, so talking is unnecessary. The Slayer manages to defeat Creedmaker, who asks to be spared, but the Slayer doesn't make deals with the devil, or his kind. With only two left, both the Slayer and the Sentinels get ready for the final push against the Prince and the Witch. The Slayer takes the King's Atlan mech into battle, only to be greeted by the recently resurrected Old One. Having been fitted with Hell's technology, the beast is now under Azric's command, but it once again falls to the hands of the Slayer. If you want something done right, you ought to do it yourself, so the Prince fights the Slayer himself. Both put up a good fight, but the Prince struck a significant blow to the Slayer. Before the killing blow was dealt, Surratt came by and rescued him, only to be put down by the evil Prince. Realizing Surratt is dead, the Slayer likely flashed back to his past, all those years ago, back when his pet Daisy was counted amongst the dead, How many animals of his is Hell going to take? Using all his leftover strength to stand up, the Slayer fights the prince once more and defeats him, ripping out the heart and returning him to his older, weaker self. Knowing that they've lost, the witch takes Azric away and back to his palace, while the Sentinels, along with the newly awoken Commander Thera and the Slayer, push towards his location. The Slayer then confronts the two in a fight to the death, but neither the witch nor the prince are strong enough to fight the Slayer, for he is Doom incarnate. The Slayer will then kill Azric and Ulsimir as they take the knowledge of the Old One and the Cosmic Realm with them, leaving the region lost to time. The Slayer then appears next to the Sentinels with the head of Azric, showing the demons that their leader is dead and that the Slayer is still very much alive. The war against the armies of Hell have been won, and the people of Argent D'Nur are safe. The Slayer then disappeared, continuing to put pressure on Hell alone, while the people of Argent D'Nur celebrated their newfound peace. Word had also come down from the Khan Makyr, stating that Creed had acted alone, and that his vision did not align with the rest of the Makers. King Novik was not fully convinced of the Maker's words though, so he decided to create an inquisition in secret just in case. But little did he know that the betrayal had already started. Right under their noses, the Khan Makyr and Daig Priest had created factories inside Hell to produce more essence. Using Sentinel slaves, she built Necroval, a factory designed to harness the power of essence. Using Hell and Wraith energy, they managed to take the essence even further, creating what was known as Argent Energy. See, the demons feed off essence, as it's what comes off the souls of the mortals they torture, but they only use a small part of it, as it takes eons for a human to become a demon, so they only consume some of the essence. Using the energy of the race, they were able to accelerate the process, cutting it down to just a fraction of the time. They then constructed large towers called Soul Spires to siphon Argent Energy from Hell to Urdak, no longer requiring them to manually take it from the factory. Despite what you may believe, constructing the factory in Hell was actually rather simple, as the demons of Hell did not attack the slaves who built it, as the Khan Makyr had made a deal with the devil. Literally. The Dark Lord had offered a proposition. She would be allowed to collect Argent Energy from the mortals in her factory, so long as the demons of Hell were given more worlds and souls to consume. So the process is thus. The demons attack mortal worlds, and bring them to the factory. Its various devices and cages then trap, torture, and break the minds of its victims. Once the mortal souls are vulnerable, a machine called the Evulsor extracts the essence and sends it to Urdak, while the body is discarded to the blood swamps, where, after enough time, it will become a demon. For a long time this was kept secret, and never shared with the Night Sentinels, most of all the Slayer himself. But it was on a specific expedition to the Order of the Six where they learned the truth, that the very power they wielded was built off the souls of their brothers and sisters who had fallen in combat. But to go against the Khan Makyr was sacrilege, and discussing their findings with the people of Argenta would amount to nothing more than a target on their backs. So in secret they found other Night Sentinels who distrusted the essence and its power. These men and women then became a part of the Sentinel insurrection. This began the fight between the holy and the unholy, the light and the dark, the Sentinel Civil War. The Sentinel insurrection spread the word about the Argent Energy, revealing the lies brought on by the Khan Makyr. But many of the indoctrinated masses had no quarrels with the Makyr, for they believed in its power and saw the direct benefits of the Argent Energy, despite the claims of its origin. The Night Sentinels then prepared for war once more, knowing that this time they would be spilling the blood of their brothers and sisters. They also forsook the teachings and doctrines of the Khan Makyr, and began worshipping the wraiths like their ancestors did many years ago. And among their ranks was, of course, the mighty Doomslayer. After many years of fighting, with their armor stained with the blood of their comrades, both friend and foe, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The Night Sentinels, the priests from the Order of Daig, and the Doomslayer had made their way to Necroval. The plan was to march into the factory, smite down its machines, and cut the flow of Argent Energy. But upon stepping into the Hell portal, the Night Sentinels all found themselves separated. Some were lost, unable to find their way, while others did find the return portals, only to learn that the priests had sealed the entrance. Each Sentinel was left alone in their realm of Hell, and was attacked by its forces. But it was not just the priests who failed their people, but one of their own. Commander Valen had learned of his son Merrick's existence in Hell. Wishing for his soul to be returned and his mortal form to be restored, he was given a deal by the priests. If the commander gives them the location of the wraiths, then his son will be resurrected. But the priests were allied with the Khan Makyr and the armies of Hell, so when they learned of the wraiths' location, they sent Hell to corrupt them. And while the commander's son was resurrected, he did not become immortal, but rather an abomination. For this, the commander henceforth became known as the Betrayer. For if not for his madness, the power of the wraiths would still be their own, and the Sentinel flag would still fly over Argent D'Nur to this day. While scattered across Hell, the Sentinels put up a good fight, killing hundreds of demons along the way. Even the Atlan mechs had taken out many Titans that joined the fray, but the Sentinels, despite their strength, could not dare defeat the armies of Hell alone. Lord Sosh, a stalwart banner sergeant, was found dead with his banner pierced through a giant beast's throat. Former King Rowan died as well, but not before taking thousands of demons with him. And the many Sentinel soldiers whose names are lost to time all died in combat, all except one. The Slayer was able to withstand any force that held through at him, no matter the size nor the army. He would be there, armed and ready to crush them. But demon priests from the Blood Temples had laid a trap. The Slayer was lured into a temple, blinded by his own rage. It was then that the temple would be brought down upon him. As he lay there defeated, the priest put him inside a sarcophagus, with the mark of the Slayer imprinted on its cover. It served as a warning to Hell, that the terror inside should not be freed, lest he bring the death of Hell itself. This then brings us to the era of Doom 2016, and since then lots of developments have happened. Samur Makyr, also known as the Seraphim, followed the Father's earthly wishes and established control over the new UAC. Humans had not heard of the Makyrs yet, so Samur created a fake identity and backstory and even put himself in a robot body. To the Makyrs he is the Seraphim, to humanity he is Samuel Hayden. Samuel Hayden is currently the lead chairman of the UAC. Hayden's fake history claims that he was born into a wealthy family and established the Samuel Hayden Foundation at a young age. It was designed to help sponsor young scientific talent and fund scientific programs in schools and colleges. Thanks to his Makyr ancestry, he was extremely smart, which caught the eye of the UAC, who had recruited and soon appointed him as the General Director of the Global Science Council, but he eventually earned the role of chairman thanks to the discovery of Argent. The colonization and the mining of Mars were impressive feats in and of themselves, but in 2095 the UAC had found traces of Argent energy. Its usefulness as an energy source was sought after due to the energy crisis that Earth had recently found itself in, and thanks to their efforts, most of Earth was powered by this newly found energy. Samuel Hayden then began work on the Argent Tower. According to its description, the Argent Energy Tower harnesses Argent plasma at the Argent fracture, and then converts it into Argent energy. All of this was, of course, a part of the plan. The Father had foreseen the humans would eventually discover the gift of Argent energy, so the Seraphim guided both the UAC and humanity towards this, in preparation for their inevitable conflict with Hell's forces. The only thing holding Hayden back was his Makyr ancestry. According to ancient laws, Makyrs are not allowed to step foot in Hell. So to prevent this, the Seraphim transferred his mind into a robot. He created a fake story that he was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer and given 6 months to live, and that during that short window of time, he found the solution to his problem: cybernetic transference. This new body of his allowed him to take expeditions into Hell to help further prepare humanity for the coming fight. Now it should be mentioned that the nature of the base is still up for debate. Lots of time has passed since the Slayer encountered the portal in Doom 64, and even more time has passed since he was locked in the sarcophagus. It's led many to speculate on the nature of the solar system. Is this the same Mars and Earth from Doom 1, or are we in a parallel Earth? We've already seen proof that there are multiple realms to this world, and later we'll see that there are multiple universes as well, so it is possible that this is another Earth. No piece of text or codex in the game hints at either being the correct answer though, so I'll leave that up to you. But regardless, running a base like this alone would be impossible. Hayden needed some help from the people of the UAC in order to get things running. Two in particular were Vega and Olivia Pierce. To the people of the UAC, Vega is the AI of the company, tasked with overseeing all of its operations. In actuality, using the secrets of Makyr tech, the Seraphim had processed some of the Father's mind and reformed it into the AI Vega. The Seraphim had purposely designed it to operate like any other AI though, as if Vega learned of his real origin as the father of the Makyrs, the Dark Lord would have been able to sense its presence. As you would expect, creating an AI of this magnitude would require lots of energy, which the facility does have thanks to Argent, but the temperatures would be off the charts, so they had to carefully carve out a space for Vega that is surrounded by thick layers of ice, and that's on top of the standard cooling procedures. But despite the effort required, Vega proved to be a valuable asset to the team, and together Vega and the Seraphim worked to propel humanity into the new Golden Age. To assist in other activities, the Seraphim had also looked for help outside his Makyr brothers and sisters. One such being was Olivia Pierce. Olivia is the head of biochemical research at the Argent facility. The Seraphim, who remember is still known to the people of UAC as Samuel Hayden, was quite familiar with Olivia and her work. He had sponsored her during her formal graduation and was behind her promotion at the Global Science Council. Much of her career and subsequent success can be attributed to Hayden and his assistants. But Hayden offered a much better deal, the freedom to design and run her own lab at UAC. However, she initially declined due to her disinterest in the energy business. But when Hayden sent her an artifact called the Helix Stone from the fracture, she became obsessed and joined the UAC, leading to her current position today. After joining the company, she would then be diagnosed with acute idiopathic scoliosis. Rather than become bound to a wheelchair, she decided to undergo an experimental augmentation, which gave her a permanent titanium exoskeleton grafted to her spinal column. These were the three important figures within the UAC, and I stress important because everyone else was expendable. The UAC had always been corrupt, this is true, but there was even more corruption under the surface than previously thought. Being a part of the UAC means dedicating your life and soul to the job, 7 days a week, all day long. You're expected to be at your peak when performing daily duties, as the UAC would expect nothing less. Those security hired to go on expeditions into hell were usually killed, many of them forced to give up their lives. And workers are instructed to let the demons of hell kill them if they can't escape, so that their bodies can be used for post-mortem study. Those among them who were also lucky enough to be on the expeditions into hell were told to donate all their belongings in case of death, with all their money and assets going to the UAC's pockets. You are not a person within the UAC, you're an asset. For a time though, the UAC was successful in preparing humanity under Hayden's authority, but eventually, things took a turn for the worst. Olivia Pierce had come in contact with Hell Priest Dag Rannick, a former worshipper of wraiths in Argenta, who turned Hell Priest after they betrayed the Sentinels. Dag Rannick had communicated with Olivia, who promised her immense power for her cooperation. A demon-worshipping cult within the UAC then began to sprout, where those within would sacrifice others in the name of their gods. Numerous codex pages throughout the game point to Olivia being very strict with her access to the cult, as only high enough members in the company could join, while also being just as strict regarding their orders. They were to always assist in rituals and never stray from the path, continually remembering that their goal was to open the gates of hell. Hayden eventually took notice of this cult within his facility but paid no mind to it, so long as Olivia hit her quotas. But as time went on, she became more interested in hell and less involved in her work, which is when Hayden started getting suspicious. This reached a boiling point when suddenly Olivia activated a Lazarus wave within the facility, turning about 60% of the employees into demons, with the rest being killed by them shortly after. Olivia had also activated the kill chips inside the elite guards. These were some of the best soldiers on the station, who only answered to the top brass. Their skill made it necessary to implement a kill switch should they act out of line. Olivia used this flaw in their design to shut them all down, which, without a doubt, would have made the invasion a lot harder. With the station in disarray, it's hard not to flash back to the times of Doom 1, but Hayden had a backup plan. On an expedition into hell, specifically the Katangir Sanctum, he came across the armor and sarcophagus of the Doomslayer. He brought it back with him as a contingency plan in case something like this would happen. Knowing that the Doomslayer is the UAC's only hope, he opens the sarcophagus and lets him loose on his worst enemy. Doom 2016 begins with the invasion already underway. The Slayer wakes up from his long nap, dons the Praetor suit again, and sets out to stop Hell. But Hell has some tricks up its sleeves. Many of the Slayer's favorite demons have returned, but there are some additions and some evolutions of previous demons. The Invisible Spectre versions of the Pinkies were an accident created by the UAC when they attempted to modify the original Pinkies. The UAC was experimenting with different tests, one of which gave the Pinkies limited psionic abilities. Its invisibility had tripped up one of the researchers at the lab, believing it had escaped. When the cage was opened, it made its way back to Hell and then bred with the other Pinkies, as more and more offspring showed signs of the invisibility. Revenants are also another man-made creation of the UAC, this time the result of UAC military personnel being methodically transformed into demonic combatants through cybernetic augmentations and repeated Lazarus wave exposure. The repeated exposure was also the cause of the Revenant's noticeable loss of skin. The Lazarus wave was also the cause of the numerous possessed staff similar to past games. All those who are possessed seem to be under the control of a mastermind, as they have been seen performing tasks unwillingly, like contributing corpses to gore nests and guarding key locations. Along with these demons were also some new ones unique to this invasion. The Mancubus had a tougher sibling known as the Cyber Mancubus. The UAC had become interested in the Mancubus line of demons and sought to study and manipulate it if possible. They are similar in design and intent to the Mancubus, but the UAC fitted them with their own barrels, and the projectiles they shoot are now highly toxic. Hellraisers are demons that are equipped with a powerful beam attached to their arm that shoots unrefined argent energy. It seems as though the parasite initially finds a host to cremate from within. Then, as it matures, the barrel starts to form on the host's arm. And the last demon for now is the Summoner. As the name implies, they summon other demons into battle to fight for them. Studies from it show that they are a highly evolved subgenus of the Imp. As expected, the Slayer has his work cut out for him. Once off the table, Hayden then talks to the Slayer, getting him up to speed on what's happened. He claims that while what happened was a tragedy, it was all for the betterment of mankind, and any sacrifices were necessary for progress. Both Hayden and Vega will serve as the voices in the Slayer's head, as he works alone to stop the demons. But don't mistake the Slayer's lack of denouncement as allyship. He doesn't trust Hayden as far as he could throw him. In fact, he actively works against his interests when the Slayer knows that there is a much better alternative. During their talk, Olivia forces the reactors into a critical meltdown, which will destroy the base if not stopped. The demonic presence is interfering with the turbines, so the gore nest must be cleansed to proceed. According to some of the notes taken during the invasion, the demons of hell do not function without purpose. When a human is killed, they will drag them to a ceremonial site, which then turns it into a gore nest. The bigger the gore nest, the more corpses were likely used to make it. When a gore nest is created, it then acts as a sort of umbilical cord to hell, channeling energy from hell right to it. But it also acts as an alarm that will alert all nearby demons if it happens to be attacked. After the gore nests have been taken care of, the Slayer finds the central control room and meets with Olivia. She is trying to open a portal from our world into theirs. The demonic presence from the UAC employees is a great start, but it's not enough for a full invasion, especially if the plan involves conquering Earth. So she plans to use the Argent Tower as a means to activate that portal. The Slayer is then tasked with shutting down the Argent Tower manually, but in true Slayer fashion, he cares little for Hayden or his little toys. Hayden would prefer if the Slayer would simply turn off the machine, but instead he destroys them.
We're only temporarily disabling the tower. You need to remove each lens individually. Carefully release the hinges.
As he approaches the last final filter, Hayden asks him to reconsider.
If stopping our energy production is what you want, then you need only to destroy this last filter, and Argent energy will no longer exist in this solar system. We will be back at square one. You have no idea what you have just done.
The Slayer doesn't care. Argent energy comes from hell, and nothing from hell comes without a price, and it's certainly not one worth paying. Shutting down the Argent Tower prevents the portal from opening. Mars has been temporarily spared an invasion from hell. But, still determined to bring hell to this dimension, Olivia has taken a device known as an accumulator to the top of the tower, and plans to create the portal there herself. Making his way up the tower, the Slayer tries to shut down the device but isn't fast enough and is sucked into hell. While in hell, he starts to see visions of Hayden's various expeditions. Now he managed to find the Slayer. With enough time, the Slayer finds his way out of hell, but while he was busy trying to escape, hell was busy invading. According to Hayden, the Argent Tower is destroyed, but the portal to hell that was open can no longer be closed from this side. Hell's energy flows from a place called the Well. Vega accesses some of Olivia's files and learns the location of her secret personal lab. Inside her lab is the Helix Stone, the same artifact Hayden gifted her years ago, which convinced her to join the UAC. The Slayer then travels through the Argent facility to the Advanced Research Complex. Here he meets with Hayden in person for the first time. Hayden, also without his consent, installs a tether system into his suit, so he can leash him back from hell, something all too familiar to him at this stage. But Hayden is also quite familiar with the Slayer and the Sentinels, given the statues in his office. Hayden then goes on to explain the nature of the Helix Stone. He says that it was what taught them the nature of Argent energy and how to manipulate it for their purposes. It is also what led the expedition team right to the Slayer's sarcophagus, even bearing the same mark as the one on the cover. Hayden believes that if it led them to the Slayer, then he might be able to see something in the stone that they were unable to. Traveling to this side of the base, we can see that the famed UAC cult is really making themselves at home. Candles and markings are everywhere, both on the walls and floors, and I need not mention the plethora of effigies and corpses. Although it is possible that the demons created this, not the cult. Touching the stone reveals a strange object of some kind. Hayden recognizes it as an item called the Crucible. Doom Eternal will show us its features in action quite extensively, but the Crucible is a massive red sword made from presumably pure Argent energy. It can not only slice a demon in half with just a single swing, but its power is even able to stop a Titan in its tracks, as we'll see later. During the brief vision, Vega was able to triangulate the position of the Crucible, which is in the untouched region of Titan's realm. To get there, the Slayer will have to blow off another Argent accumulator. The only one available is inside specimen CD587, although we know it as the Cyber Demon. After its defeat, the rupturing of the accumulator managed to send both the Cyber Demon and the Slayer to hell. From here, the Slayer crosses through both the Titan's realm and Necropolis to get to the Crucible. Spirits of long-forgotten Night Sentinels come by to witness him acquire the weapon before Hayden sends him out of hell using the tether he installed earlier. With the object of interest now in hand, Hayden and Vega lay down the plan to shut this portal down for good. The Slayer will go to Vega's Central Processing Unit, the place where he was created. Vega states that he requires 2.4 terawatts of power to operate, but they can use that power to send the Slayer back to the source of the portal. This will naturally kill Vega in the process, as he will no longer have the power necessary to function, but he can self-terminate, so the Slayer must do the process for him. This first involves disabling the security systems, then destroying his cooling towers, which cause a meltdown, leading to the loss of his nominal systems. The Slayer then takes out his central processors before Vega is killed. In his final moments, Hayden thanks him for his service. Vega replies that he has many regrets, although we don't get to learn what they are. However, not wanting to give up such a valuable asset, the Slayer creates a backup of Vega and stores it in a disk to be used for later. With the core rupture, the resulting explosion was enough to create a portal and send the Slayer back to Hell to finish the fight, where he is sent as a place that served as his home for a long time, Argent de Nur. We get to see what happened to their world after the betrayal, and after Hell had taken everything it could from them. This would also explain the Sentinel's essence that guides the Slayer to his objective, and why the Wraiths are what must be destroyed for the well to cease functionality. Once all 3 Wraiths are set free and laid to rest, the core opens. Inside is Olivia, noticeably injured. She claims that the demons promised her so much, but it seems as though she got more than what she bargained for. The power of Hell then melts her into the iconic Cyber Mastermind. The in-game codex description states that the key holder will become one with the Master. This further reinforces that Olivia had joined the Sputter Mastermind in death, and seems to imply that the Sputter Mastermind was the Dark Lord. As we know, Davoth is the Dark Lord, but with him out of commission, many tried to usurp the role of leader. We saw Prince Azric take over temporarily, but now it seems that the Sputter Demon has now filled that once vacant role. Until, of course, they met the Slayer. Having defeated so many of its ilk far before he got the powers of a divinity machine, the Slayer had killed the Sputter Mastermind with relative ease. This stopped both the Mastermind behind the invasion and the invasion altogether, as its death closed the portal and shut down the power from the well.
You've won. It's over. You stopped the invasion and closed the portal. But it's come at a price. Argent, Vega, this entire operation. You see, I've watched you work, come to understand your motivation. You think the only way is to kill them all, leave nothing behind. And you may be right. But we can't just shut it all down. Without Argent energy, it will be worse. I don't expect you to agree. But with this, we can continue our work. I am not the villain in this story. I do what I do because there is no choice.
Rerouting tether coordinates complete.
Our time is up. I can't kill you, but I won't have you standing in our way. Until we see each other again.
The Slayer's successful defense of the station had halted the invasion of Hell, preventing them from ever reaching Earth. But it's Doom. Peace can only last so long, and as the Slayer is intimately familiar with by now, just because Hell didn't find Earth now doesn't mean they never will, and that is where Doom Eternal begins. The attack on the Mars base not only weakened communication between Mars and Earth, but also collapsed the Argent-dependent energy grids that line the planet's surface. Hayden then returned to Earth and appeared before the Allied Nations Council, offering the key to salvation, the Crucible. He told those of the Council what had transpired, although it's unclear how much detail he went into, but they seemed willing to cooperate. Hayden invented a new method of Argent synthesis, a replication that could generate high-yield Argent energy. Hayden used the Crucible as a conductor, given it was the only source of Argent energy left. Using this, he could create synthetic Argent energy, restoring the power grid to its normal functions. But soon after, the demons made their way to Earth. The invasion's forces were being led by the same Hell Priest that betrayed the Sentinels all those years ago, but the ringleader behind the operation was the Con Makyr herself. Since the Con Makyr had teamed up with Hell, she'd gone through many different worlds, taking its victims and torturing them to extract more essence, and Earth was the next on her list. It didn't take very long for Hell to overrun Earth. 60% of the planet was consumed by the demons, with the percentage increasing by the day. Judging from the map, it seems as though North America got hit the hardest, and has been completely engulfed on the world map. Strangely though, as we move more eastward, the attacks from Hell seem to dissipate, with Australia and many other countries within Southeast Asia having no conflicts with Hell. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for this. My guess is that traversal through water isn't something Hell has likely mastered yet, on account of their homeworld being covered in lava, but I honestly have no idea why this is the case. But on top of this, new demons were also spotted amongst the current armies. The UAC's cultists had managed to retrofit some Hell Knights with cybernetically enhanced weaponry and armor, creating a new variant called Dread Knights. Then there were the newly found Prowlers, beings who prefer to attack from the shadows who are also an offshoot of the Imps. Whiplashes, beings who haven't returned since the Dark Ages, are now back in full force, and Arc Vials, while noticeably missing from the Mars invasion, have now appeared on Earth again. Like in Doom 2, several hundred space lifeboats carried out as many survivors as it could, all cryogenically frozen, but the survival rate for them is low, and those still on Earth are even lower. It has led to many people seeking religion for answers, believing that this is a form of divine punishment for humanity's sins. Following the collapse of civilization, many of the world's leaders that were lucky enough to survive had come together under the banner of the Allied Nations. This single world government would help establish safe havens stocked with food and supplies for survivors. By 2151, the formation of the Armed Response Coalition, or ARC, would take the highest priority and was considered to be the last hope for humanity. Hayden immediately began instructing the leftover UAC bases on Earth, which were unharmed due to how remote they were, and have them reconstructed to follow the demands of Hayden as he worked to stop the invasion. Much of the ARC's operations were then conducted on a mobile command carrier out in the open sea. Their main objective was to find the source of the Hell Growth infestation and then shut down the portal on Earth to prevent any demons from coming in. Hayden, along with ARC, then conducted many attacks and raids in an attempt to stop Hell, but none of them proved successful enough. Even his backup plan, Operation Hellbreaker, was deemed a failure, resulting in many ARC soldiers dead and Hayden's body being separated. Now he's being monitored by ARC soldiers who tend to his systems, while also safeguarding the crucible he brought with them. All hope had seemed lost, but that's when humanity's savior would once again lead the charge against the forces of Hell. Since Doom 2016, the Slayer managed to commandeer the Fortress of Doom, a floating castle in space that used to be owned by the Sentinels, whose systems are now being run by Vega, thanks to the Slayer saving him last game. Upon arriving to Earth, he hears the screams and cries of those on the ground, all being torn apart by Hell. Knowing what he must do, he puts on his suit, grabs his weapons, and jumps through a portal that will take him to the nearest Hell Priest, as if they die, then the invasion will fail. Continuing to show that age hasn't slowed him down a bit, within just a few minutes he manages to track down the Hell Priest, Dag Nilix, and take him out. Interestingly, Nilix claims his soul remains guarded, likely implying that he can't die. That is until the Slayer shows him a coin. This coin seems to be related to the champions these Hell Priests select. We'll see this later, but it seems as though as long as the champion of the Hell Priest is alive, they can't die. But at least in the case of Nilix, it seems as though the Slayer had already taken care of them before the game started. Thanks to this, the demonic consumption of Earth has been reduced by 36.8%. Vega then points him towards the location of the Demonic Council. Upon arriving, the two remaining Hell Priests are naturally confused as to how he entered. They claim that despite the death of their friend, one death will not be enough to stop the invasion. The world will be cleansed as was instructed by the great Khan Makyr, and humanity's souls will feel the argent energy that she needs to save her people. But then of course the two of them leave right after this, so as to not end up like Nilix, before the Khan Makyr appears, echoing much of what the priest said. That this is humanity's chance to repent, and that the Slayer can stop what is to come, as it was supposed to be his duty to enforce the will of the Khan Makyr. Knowing that he can't harm the Khan Makyr here and that the Hell Priests are gone, he returns to the Fortress of Doom. Unfortunately, Vega cannot locate the second Hell Priest. The ship's celestial locator is missing a component. Knowing where he might find one, the Slayer sets the portal's destination to Exaltia. This place is located in Argent Denur. As such, it served as a home for the Sentinels, but ever since Hell had conquered their land, the place has been left in ruin. The Slayer then finds his way to the throne room, where inside is an apparition of King Novik. Novik tells the Slayer to leave. He knows why the Slayer has come here and what he plans to do, further saying that spilling holy blood is forbidden. As you'll recall, not everyone joined the insurrection, which is what led to the Sentinel Civil War, so many still see the Makyrs as the one true gods. And it's such a shame that even after everything, King Novik continues to defend them. On the topic of the king though, he is in a spectral form, but he's talking to the Slayer about current events. This implies that Novik survived the betrayal and is alive, or maybe his power is far greater than we know, as he could be speaking from the afterlife. But with the device in hand, it's now time to find a replacement, as this one is empty. The Slayer then takes a portal to Hell. Where he ends up is a former battleground, one of the many between the Sentinels and Hell. It's almost like the land itself has been frozen in time. This is when the Slayer then meets with the Betrayer. Earlier, we talked about how a Sentinel, now called the Betrayer, had given up the location of the Wraiths in exchange for his son's life to be restored from Hell. This is that Betrayer. Now Commander Valen sits here in Hell atoning for his sins. The Slayer is here with a proposition, and that is to swap the current device for the fully charged one that he carries. He accepts, but like King Novik, tells him that his conquest is fruitless, and that if anything, it will worsen the burden he already carries. But before he leaves, he hands him a dagger and tells him that once his son's life has been laid to rest, then his soul will be at peace, a foreshadowing of the events soon to come. Thanks to the Slayer's efforts, Vega knows where the second Hell Priest, Dag is, which he triangulates to be in the northern part of Earth. The Slayer ends up at an Arctic base that belongs to the UAC's Cultists, now known as the Cultist Base. As we know, Rannick had a hand in the invasion back on Mars. Now he oversees all production happening within the base and its many possessed workers. According to reports, this was built over the ruins of an ancient Argenta settlement, which explains the combined aesthetic of Gothic architecture and state-of-the-art science. The people of Argent during their many territorial conquests had managed to find their way here over 60 million years ago and establish this base. It also states that when the Order of Dag had discovered Earth over a millennia ago, they found it to be populated with a vast amount of primeval beasts. These beasts were called Agadons, the same ones we saw in Doom the Dark Ages. Interestingly, they were found to be native to Earth, but traces of their existence can only be found near the settlement. Carbon dating suggests that they are 80 million years old, meaning they predate all known complex life forms on Earth. They, however, went extinct sometime after the Dark Ages, likely during the Slayer's long nap in the sarcophagus. Their remains seem to have been preserved in the icy tundra of the Arctic, as UAC cultists being led by the Hell Priests have taken their bodies for scientific study. Reports say that the Hell Priests had genetically modified these Agadons into Doom Hunters, who fought the Slayer and the Night Sentinels during the Unholy Crusades on Argent. But the UAC cultists seem to have found these notes and seem to have restarted the program as the Slayer comes across a Doom Hunter in the facility. Once the Doom Hunters are defeated, the Hell Priest begs for his life, asking if the Slayer would like some power in exchange for his life, but the Slayer declines. Upon returning to the Fortress of Doom to locate the third and final Hell Priest, the Slayer finds the ship overrun by the Makyr. Despite being a sentinel structure, the fortress is of Makyr design, so she's familiar with the hardware. She says that despite the setbacks, Earth will still be ravaged and the Slayer cannot stop what's coming. She's also taken to moving the final Hell Priest to a more secure location to make sure things go according to plan. That will have to be put on hold for now anyway, as they have a more immediate problem on their hands. There is a 41.3% increase in demonic activity where the invasion initially began. The Makyr has accelerated the consumption of Earth. More demons than ever before were pouring out of the Super Gore Nest, said to not only be the origin of the invasion, but also the place that houses the largest Gore Nest on Earth. Destroying it should halt a good portion of the invasion's ongoing conquest, otherwise Earth will be consumed faster than ever before. Destroying it requires the Slayer to go inside the nest itself and down into the underground laboratory. Activating the facility's dormant generator should overload the heart that it's attached to, causing it to explode, taking the whole Gore Nest with it. Once done, the Slayer runs like hell and jumps into a portal right before the explosion occurs, which destroys the nest and halts a significant chunk of Hell's consumption of Earth. But halt is the key word here. While the Slayer did successfully stop the Gore Nest, it only delayed things. Killing the Hell Priest is the only way to stop the invasion, but Vega still can't find that last priest. But he may know someone who can, someone the Slayer is intimately familiar with. Despite his reservations if he is to find this last Hell Priest, the Slayer will need the aid of Samuel Hayden. Sadly, the entrance to his office is blocked. Once the building is freed from the tentacles, the path to Hayden is open. Upon taking the elevator, the Slayer makes it to the top floor and takes back his crucible. But Hayden already knew he would come for this eventually. He'll then grab Hayden's decaying mechanical body, but before he can leave, another foe has come to face him.
Warning. Demonic presence threat level 5 entering main laboratory.
Opening the portal now.
You were never one of us. You were nothing but a usurper, a false idol. My eyes have been opened. Let me help you to see, Slayer.
As we discussed earlier, the Night Sentinels were enveloped in a civil war, where some served their old gods while others served the Makyr. Those who served the Makyr were denied finality in death. When killed, they were placed into the divinity machine, transformed by Hell's powers. Wielding Argent-powered equipment and much of their old armor from before their untimely demises, they were created solely to kill the Slayer, and they would become known as Marauders. After defeating this Marauder, the Slayer heads back to the Fortress of Doom. Hayden is willing to help as he always has, as he gives the Slayer the location of the final Hell Priest, Sentinel Prime. However, there is no easy way to get to Sentinel Prime. as the only functional slipgate is in the core of Mars, inside the lost city of Hebeth. The history of the Sentinels is long and complicated. As such, there are many places lost to time that only a few people recall. Hebeth was one of them. As we saw from the Dark Ages, Hebeth was a planet that notably contained the barrier that kept the forces of Hell at bay, but thanks to Prince Azric, that planet was lost to time. Hell invaded many of the Sentinels' homeworlds, and it was likely that Hebeth never came under Sentinel control again. As such, the world swallowed the settlements, which would explain why it's near the core of the planet. But this planet also being Mars means that not only is the Sentinel history way older than humanity's, but that they expanded far past their own boundaries. The Sentinels controlled both Earth and Mars back before those places were even under humanity's control, ironically making the time difference between these games even harder to explain. Getting to the core of the planet is going to be tricky, but the Slayer cares little for delicacy and careful planning. He sets coordinates to the BFG 10,000, as its cannon blast is big enough to blow a massive hole right into Mars, making his trip to the core a lot easier. Once the cannon's been fired, he gets into an escape pod and launches himself towards the lost city. Taking the slipgate portal, he finds himself in Sentinel Prime. Sentinel Prime is an ancient arena, considered to be a holy place for the people of Argent D'Nur. This Colosseum served as a proving ground for trial by combat. As we saw earlier, the Slayer was here before. He was taken here when the Sentinels first found him. His strength is what got him inducted into the ranks of the Sentinels to begin with, and he proved that here. Thanks to its assimilation with Hell, the place is now used for bloodsport, where the Hell Priests pit armed captives against demons for sport. The crowning champion of the arena, and the one the Slayer must kill to get to the Hell Priest, is the Gladiator. Thanks to his past, the Slayer is granted sovereignty in this holy place. That's why the Sentinels and Makyr angels don't attack him. But the Hell Priests still hold power here. As such, by ancient law, no priest's blood can be spilled, or it will lead to banishment. Seems a little contrived, given that the Hell Priests are responsible for the attack on Earth, and the Slayer agrees. He's always believed in two things, that Earth should remain safe and that all demons must die. It doesn't matter who gets in his way, if they happen to cross these boundaries, they're as good as dead. So even though this means breaking an ancient law made by the people who recruited him to their cause, blood must be paid for in blood. Killing the final Hell Priest makes him an enemy of the Night Sentinels. But given they allied themselves with the Khan Makyr, the Slayer and them were bound to be enemies one day anyway. Frustrated at the Slayer's accomplishments, the Khan Makyr desperately activates her ace in the hole. She's not only deactivated the ship's system so that the Slayer can no longer use the ship and teleport where he pleases, but she also has resurrected the Icon of Sin. As you'll recall, the Betrayer's son was not brought back from Hell in the same form he was in when he left. The Hell Priest hadn't told the full truth, and instead resurrected his son as an abomination. This abomination is the Icon of Sin, a primordial being of chaos and destruction. A being who, according to the ancient scriptures, signals the end of life as we know it. After the demons have been cleared out and the systems have been rebooted thanks to the Crucible, Hayden says that the only way to defeat a Titan is a Crucible. Hayden recommends retrieving the Slayer's old Crucible, still stuck inside the Titan on Taras Nabad. Taras Nabad was ground zero for a demonic invasion that saw the Sentinels square off against Hell. The place used to be the spiritual heart of Argent D'Nur, and was home to both the royal family and the center of the land's political power. It was a place of great value and holiness. Rural Argenta, who lived on the outskirts of the land, would often come here on pilgrimages to see the Makyr temples. But thanks to the invasion, much of the place is lost. However, if not for the Slayer, it would have been worse. As we discussed earlier, his rage is said to have inspired the Sentinels' armies, giving the people of Argent D'Nur hope, and he was easily the strongest warrior on that battlefield. Taras Nabad is where the legend of the Slayer was born. But even still, not even the rage of the Slayer could completely save this place. Taras Nabad is now a shadow of its former self, ruined and now occupied by the forces of Hell. Taras Nabad is also where the Divinity Machine is located, and its presence makes the Slayer recall the first time he had stepped into it, back when he was granted the immense power he currently holds within him. It's here where he also finds his old sword, still embedded in the large beast, just as Hayden said it was. However, its blade has become detached, thus it has no power. So the Slayer revisits his old vault and reassembles the great blade that he left behind so long ago. Now with the means to stop the Icon of Sin, he first sets out to stop the Khan Makyr. The Khan Makyr is on our homeworld of Urdak. It's said that no human or Sentinel has ever stepped foot in their dimension before. To get there, the Slayer will have to use the Argent Factory deep in the Hell City of Necraval to pass through the void. Once through the portal, the Slayer will not be able to leave Urdak simply by walking out. So Hayden requests that the Slayer take Vega with him, so that he can create an exit portal for him. As mentioned before, Necraval was the city designed by Hell and the Makyrs to produce a continuous flow of Argent. Victims taken from their conquests are sent to Calibus, the sightless judge. The demon Calibus is unable to move or communicate, but exists as an overseer for the factory, as it is they who determines which souls are to be selected for the Argent process. Past Calibus is a soul spire that, when destroyed, will release a great deal of energy that the Slayer can ride all the way to Urdak. As he makes it to the Makyr homeworld, he enters one of the buildings nearby and interrupts the ritual process that involves resurrecting the Icon of Sin. Using the knife the Betrayer gave him earlier, he stabs the heart, stopping the ritual. But all it really did was merely prevent the Khan Makyr from controlling it. The Icon of Sin has resurrected, but it is no longer under the Makyr's control. Now freed from its constraints, it opens a portal to Earth, ready to destroy anything in its path. Demons then start pouring into Urdak. This shouldn't technically be possible, as ancient laws state that Makyrs cannot enter Hell, and demons cannot enter Urdak, but this act seems to have broken that seal. But now that the ritual has stopped, the Slayer will have to find a way out. To achieve this, Vega must be placed into Urdak systems, so that he can realign the 3 celestial rings, which, when together, will create a portal back to Earth. When placing Vega into the console though, he starts to act strange, before asking Hayden if he is the father. As we know, Vega was an AI created by Hayden, aka the Seraphim, using the essence of the father. This is when Vega would learn the truth of his existence, and remember his past as the father, the one who betrayed the creator Davoth, and the one who helped him rewrite Makyr history, so that his existence never came to light. But once the rings are in place, the portal to Earth is open. Stopping him from leaving though is both the Khan Makyr and her Makyr drones. Much of Urdak's population is comprised of drones that exist as an extension of the Khan Makyr's will. They each have their own identity, but despite that they remain biologically unable to resist the command of the Khan Makyr. This is how Urdak has been able to function as a perfectly synchronized system. And the Khan Makyr, of course, needs no introduction. All she's ever wanted to do is to prevent the deaths of her people, but in doing so, she's killed dozens of worlds and billions of beings within those worlds. She believed that it was her people's right to do this, that they were supposed to be granted prosperity until the end of time. But it was her arrogance and underestimation of the Slayer that led to her defeat.
You have destroyed all that I was meant to rule, and all just to protect them, mere servants to our beliefs. You have broken the holy seal of Urdak. Your transgressions here will jeopardize all of creation.
Strangely, after the death of the Khan Makyr, a mysterious voice can be heard screaming no. I have never known what to do with this information. Prior to the DLC's release, it was called the Mysterious Voice. When the Ancient Gods Part 1 was released, the name was changed to Dark Lord, implying that it was Davoth, but when Ancient Gods Part 2 released, it was changed back to Mysterious Voice. As it would make no sense why Davoth would be upset about the Khan Makyr's death, despite him planning her death this whole time. This voice also sounds a lot like the voice heard in Doom 2016, when a demonic voice is talking to Olivia, expressing anger at the Slayer being found. It's never been stated who these beings are or what their plan was supposed to be, so I think I'd like to leave it for now and hope a future game clarifies it. Back on Earth, all that's left to do is defeat the Icon of Sin, and the invasion will be stopped once more. The massive beast is covered in armor, so the Slayer must first chip away at the armor, then attack its fleshy body. If it is not killed soon, then the entire Earth is at risk, not just because of its size, but merely because its existence in this realm can warp reality itself. Its chaos and destruction would destroy Earth, which itself would create a black hole, sucking in the entire universe, only to be absorbed by Hell, and only the Slayer can stop it. Once enough damage has been dealt, the demon will fall, not only letting the Betrayer and his son's soul rest in peace, but also saving the Earth in the process. With Earth saved, there remains an air of peace, at least in this dimension. The demons that remained in Urdak have corrupted the once holy realm, and threaten to use the higher dimension as a new pathway for their conquests. The Slayer is then forced to work with the UAC once more to uncover the whereabouts of the Seraphim, so that he may guide the Slayer to the one man capable of sealing off Urdak from the demonic forces of Hell. Which means that Samuel Hayden is instructing the Slayer on how to find his old body. The Slayer is then taken to the UAC Atlantica facility. Down at the bottom, hidden away from the public and even the crew, is a chamber that houses the Seraphim. The Slayer then makes it to the chamber. Hayden transfers his consciousness into the device, which then goes into the Seraphim, giving him control of his old body again. However, something seems wrong with the Seraphim. His body is undergoing rapid transfiguration. Knowing that this will kill him, he asks the Slayer to find the Father's life sphere and bring back his physical form. We know that he was placed in the Ingmar Sanctum located in the blood swamps of Hell, so that's where the Slayer is headed to next. Yet despite the request, the Slayer will not be honoring them. The Slayer knows the powers of the Makers, knows how corrupt they are, and knows what's in store for humanity, should they ally themselves with the Makers and the Father. So rather than retrieve it, he's going to destroy it. To get there though requires some feats of strength and cunning. 2 trials are to be completed before entry is granted. Both will test the Slayer's capabilities. Given he's gotten this far, this is a walk in the park. Once both trials are complete, the Titan in the distance will awaken, taking the platform the Slayer is standing on and bringing him to the Father. The Slayer then takes the life sphere of the Dark Lord. The only way to kill the Dark Lord is to give him his body back, so he plans to release and then kill him right after. With the sphere in hand, he makes his way to Urdak, still corrupted by the presence of Hell. As we're also back in Urdak, that also means we get to meet Vega again, who definitely recalls being the Father. Despite being the all-encompassing leader of the Makers without a physical form, he lacks the capabilities to push the demons of Hell back. He also remembers very little from his time as the Father, but says that returning his life sphere to him could provide him with knowledge. That's going to be a little hard to do now, so hopefully he's not too torn up over it. Once the Slayer makes his way to the chamber necessary to awaken the Dark Lord, the Slayer finds the Seraphim, who is transfigured into a holy purple beast. Right before killing him though, the Father tells the Slayer that he no longer poses a threat to his mission, meaning he doesn't need to die. The Father then takes the Seraphim away while the Slayer awakens the Dark Lord.
Not a king, but a warrior of the Dark Realm. The fiercest among them, as only the strongest could rule the demons. It is you, in their world.
No blood can be spilled in this holy place. Our time will come. If you survive, I will be waiting for you at the city of Emora.
The Dark Lord looks exactly like the Slayer. When the Dark Lord was planning his revenge, he had guided the Khan Maker into creating the Divinity Machine. He wanted the Makers to make the Divinity Machine so that the Slayer could get inside, be powered up, and then eventually kill the Makers in his stead. Everything he's done since becoming the Dark Lord has led to this moment, where he uses the Slayer to enact his revenge for him. So, since Davoth's shard or essence powers the machine, it is assumed that this is why Davoth looks like the Slayer, because he needs a physical form after being released from the sphere. But without one readily present, he took the form of the Slayer, as he had likely copied himself in the Divinity Machine. But with his next objective now revealed, he now fights his way to the city of Emora to battle the Dark Lord. To start, he travels to the Steeps, near the World Spear. He is here because the Slayer needs to power the Gate of Devum. Built eons ago by the Father, the Gate of Devum is the only way to reach Emora. The Father used this as a way to oversee Hell so that he may keep watch, but the power of the gate has been lost to time, so now it lies dormant, waiting for someone to reactivate it. In ancient times, Sentinel Shamans used to approach the World Spear to await judgment. The gatekeepers who guarded this place are said to kill anyone who is deemed unworthy of the spear's power. Those who are deemed worthy, however, are given a piece of it as a reward. It's considered to be an object of limitless power, and was said to be used to power the Gate of Devum itself. The Slayer plans to use this shard of the spear to repower the gate and head to Emora. To get there, the Slayer must light the Torch of Kings, which signals that someone requests passage to the World Spear. Thanks to the Father, he opens the path to the spear by vouching for the Slayer, claiming that he is worthy of entrance. Once the shard is in hand, it's off to Earth to find the lost Gate of Devum. It's been a couple of years since the initial invasion, and since then the land's hellish fire has been replaced with lush greenery. Mother Nature always finds a way after all. Even when Hell itself comes to claim it, she will always find a way to grow. Despite the invasion and the consumption of Hell having failed, there are, however, demons of Hell who have not been killed still roaming the empty streets. Passing through the overgrown city, the Slayer finds and powers the portal. leaving just the Slayer and Imora. Hell will not take this line down, so they send armies worth of enemies after him. But unfortunately for Hell, neither will he.
Let hell tremble before our might!
The light of the Torch of the Kings was so bright that anyone in Argent could see it. The Hell Priest had forbidden the use of this beacon, so if it's lit now, then that must mean the war against Hell is back on. Working together with the Sentinels, the Slayer attempts to fight his way to the top to confront the Dark Lord himself. Once at the top, he and the Dark Lord fight one-on-one, to the death, for their battle will decide the fate of all things. If Davoth wins, nothing will stand in his way. His greatest enemy is gone, and now he has a physical form, meaning all of those who have wronged him are in grave danger. But if the Slayer wins, Hell's creator and the creator of all things is dead, and any demon outside of Hell will be automatically killed as decreed by Hell's laws.
Nothing to say to your creator before you strike him down. No.
His hand, all things were made. Even you.
It's assumed that the Slayer and the Dark Lord are linked via the Divinity Machine, since it was the Dark Lord's shard that powered it. So anything attached to him will cease to exist, including the Slayer himself. Does this mean this is the end of the Slayer? Of Doom Guy? Who knows? It's not the first time he's been put into a coffin, and he's certainly been through worse. Even still, his legacy will live on. During the initial attack on Earth, ARC broadcasters were reporting on the legendary Doomslayer's appearance. His presence became something of a legend, a one-man army who defeated the demons of hell all by himself. This inspired many of the survivors left on Earth to fight back against hell themselves. While donning his iconic symbol, some have taken up arms against the demons, offering prayers for his victories and spreading the word of the mighty Doomslayer. They may not know where he went, nor where he comes from. But if there is one thing everyone can agree on, it's that he is, without a doubt, the savior of mankind. So that finally wraps up the main timeline of Doom. I mentioned though that there was an alternate timeline as well. Doom has many titles, and 3 that I've neglected to mention are Doom 3 and Doom RPG 1 and 2. The reason for their absence is simply because the timelines don't connect nearly as well to the rest of the canon. That's why I wanted to include these games at the end of the video. I didn't want to complicate an already complicated plot, but I also felt that leaving them out of the video would be doing them a disservice. We'll talk about Doom RPG in just a moment, as for now I just want to focus on Doom 3. So how does Doom 3 fit into the timeline, if it even does at all? Well, somehow that's more complicated than the Doom timeline itself. According to emails left around Doom 3, the game takes place around the year 2145. Doom 2016 tells us though that Argent Energy was found in 2095, and the game's actual events take place in 2149 as seen on a monitor in the first level. That is an extremely tight timeline of events, and also suggests that Argent Energy, Samuel Hayden, Vega, Olivia Pierce, and everything else already exists. Obviously, Doom 3 was released before Doom 2016, so these characters were not mentioned. But even if we take some creative liberties, it's hard to justify. Also consider that Doom 3 has an expansion that takes place on Mars again in 2147, now 2 years before Doom 2016, making this timeline even tighter. So it's hard to claim that Doom 3 takes place before Doom 2016. However, in Samuel Hayden's office, the Praetor suit is labeled U9, like how the Soul Cube of Doom 3 is classified as U1. The Soul Cube also refers to itself as the Praelian Thor, similar to the Praetor suit, and the stone tablet depicting the ancient Martian society is also seen in Doom 2016 on the final level. Not only implying that the games could be connected and that the Slayer was the hero of the Martian's tale, but that last level was Argent Dinner, so the Martians could have been in contact with the Sentinels. However, some don't agree with these findings and find the timeline to be too tight, which is why some have claimed that it's actually a prequel to all of Doom. Those stone tablets could be referring to the Slayer, but the image is of the Doom 1 box art, possibly implying that it's actually a reference to Doomguy. This theory would also fit a bit neater, since this invasion happens on Mars, whereas Doom 1's invasion was on the moons of Mars. However, this does call into question the time, as once again this is still 4 years before Doom 2016. And I just can't see all of Doom 1, 2, Final Doom, 64, and everything with the Sentinels happening in that short of time. Although one could maybe claim that time works differently in other dimensions. As you can see, it's a bit of a headache, leading to much of the game's lore community to simply just state that it's not canon to the main Doom games, but rather in its own alternate timeline. This lets the games coexist while still remaining canonical in some fashion. Plus, there is some evidence to suggest that there are multiple Earths in this game. In the book Art of Doom Eternal, specifically page 179, it explains that Vega found evidence in multiple dimensions, where many Doomslayers fought other demons. I believe this is trying to make the claim that Eternal's battle mode multiplayer is canon, but it could also apply to Doom 3 as well. Further, deep into Eternal, the Conmaker asks the Slayer to lay down his arms. Should he, she promises a truce between them, and that she will return what he had lost all those years ago, referring to his family and possibly Daisy. However, in a cut line found by the community, the Conmaker used to say, quote, "Stop your foolish war now, and I will give you what you desire. I will send you back to your home, the Earth world in the 7th dimension." This implies that there are multiple Earths, and would confirm why there is such a strange gap in time between the games. The Slayer had went from Earth to Hell, and then into an alternate dimension, with another Earth, one where the Sentinels laid claim to its land many years before the humans of that Earth were born. This would also explain why the UAC and Earth experienced multiple invasions without lasting consequences, as these were different UACs and Earths. And why the demons of Hell have different backstories depending on the game, as each Earth experimented and experienced Hell differently. Back in Doomguy's Earth, Revenants were demons who were killed, revived, and then strapped with armor. On the new Earth, Revenants were man-made creations by the UAC. I find it difficult to believe that both of these exist at the same time, leading to the theory that this new Earth is not Doomguy's home. However, it should be stated that this is unofficial. This line from the Conmaker was cut from the game, and while we can only speculate on why, it's important to note that it being cut means it's not canon. But this doesn't mean that this won't come back around in the future, or that we can't still speculate on what id Software was initially thinking. but I've neglected to mention it until now because I wanted to keep the discussion focused on material that wasn't cut from the game. With that being said, this does at least suggest that Doom 3 is another invasion but in an alternate timeline, taking place in one of the many Earth dimensions. So with that in mind, what happened in this universe, and how did things go wrong this time? Well, like before, Mars is run by the UAC, now under the command of one Dr. Betrayal. As the UAC does, they began terraforming the planet to gather resources and artifacts. Through this, they discovered the existence of 4 stone tablets. These stones are said to be a record of a timeline of events that occurred in the past, possibly millennia ago. It depicts a war between an ancient Martian civilization and the demons from Hell. Who this ancient race of beings are is unknown, and will likely never be known, as they were all wiped out years ago. Their name might possibly be Thor, as that's the name the Soul Cube uses when referring to itself. This Soul Cube contains the lifeblood of the Martians, so this could be hinting at their name, or maybe just the Soul Cube itself is called the Thor. Regardless, the Martians showed signs of bipedalism, with a build close to that of humans. Interestingly, they also showed extreme levels of complexity and yet similar levels of primitiveness. The story of the Soul Cube and the hero was written on stone tablets, and yet the Martians have fully functioning teleporters. Even the Soul Cube itself is an anomaly, and has continued to remain one ever since. From what the UAC knows, this Soul Cube is what's left of the Martians. The Martians had come in contact with Hell. Their ancient teleporter accidentally created a gateway between them and Hell. They seem to have held their ground quite firmly, and even went into Hell, as their structures and aesthetic can be seen within Hell itself. However, the tide started turning when the forces of Hell used the artifact. The artifact is an object of unknown origin that helped Hell overpower the Martians. This led to the Martians then creating the Soul Cube, a Martian version of the artifact. However, its creation came at a heavy cost. The Martians had to sacrifice many of their people to power the device. It's unclear how many of them were needed, but it's assumed that it was most of them. A being known only as the hero would be the sole wielder of the Soul Cube, and because of them, they were able to close off the portal and seal Hell away. But the hero seems to have died protecting their people, as a rather ornate sarcophagus is seen in the ruins of Mars, and is presumed to belong to the hero. It's unknown what happened to the Martians after this, but Dr. Richard Davis surmises that they may have made their way to Earth. A map he found within the ruins seems to match that of our solar system. This leads him to believe that because they were in our solar system and their stature closely resembles that of humans, that the Martians are humanity's ancestors. Dr. Pierce Rogers also claims that these tablets were a warning. They wanted to document their history so that later civilizations could learn from their mistakes. Well, if the UAC did, then we wouldn't have a game, so clearly the warning never got through. The UAC was instead awestruck at the remains and left behind artifacts that were buried here. So they immediately got to work and uncovered the source of these Martians. Like Doom 2016 though, the mere discovery of Hell was not what set off the chain of events that led to the beginning of our story. No, the UAC was doing what it does best, capturing and experimenting on the many forces of Hell. Stasis chambers are seen holding various demons, already in prep for study. But not too long after, the attitude of the crew started to change. Engineer Adam Bernice reported hearing whispers and other noises near where he was stationed, despite being the only one on shift that day. While in a vacuum this would be nothing to worry about, similar occurrences had started appearing all over the base. Environmental Services Supervisor Grant Boston reports many of his staff are complaining about the noises. Some are outright terrified. Many other staff members also heard tales of what's going down in the Delta Labs, which is where Hell's test subjects are. Given the aforementioned info, it's possible not everyone was aware of the activities going on at the base. The staff was also experiencing psychological issues as the days continued. Reports from all over the base continually mention how the staff is either becoming more aggressive or mumbling to themselves. Symptoms among some of the staff include insomnia and nausea. One staff member reportedly lunged at one of the doctors with a scalpel during an examination, later carving some symbols into his arm and then cutting his tongue off. Someone from IT also noticed breaches within their security network, all leading back to Delta Labs. A staff member in the Alpha Labs had also claimed to hear a voice talking to him, only to step into a particle beam and die. As you can see, it seems like the UAC is barely holding on. This is what forced Dr. McNeil to write a letter to Counselor Elliot Swan. She told him all about the rumors, reports, and accidents here on Mars, specifically saying Dr. Betrayal was at fault, and the claim was convincing enough for Swan to be granted access by the board to investigate, leading to the beginning of our story. Doom 3 begins a lot like Doom 1. Our protagonist is the Doom Marine, usually just referred to as the Marine. He has been handpicked to join a new outfit here on the UAC Mars base. A lot like Doom Guy back in Doom 1, being stationed here is not an appealing prospect. It's lots of waiting around and boredom. Although joining him on the ship was Counselor Elliot Swan and his personal bodyguard Jack Campbell. When confronted, Betrayal doesn't deny the claims, but he says that what he is doing is for the purposes of science, following it by saying that if he had a bigger budget and more competent staff, he could get more results for the board. Counselor Swan then requests complete access to the base while he files his reports, which Betrayal reluctantly provides. The Doom Marine is then requested to seek Sergeant Kelly and get his first assignment. Kelly requests the Marine look into a missing persons report. A scientist here went missing and he is to be found and brought back. On the way there, the Marine can talk to some of the staff around the base to get the lowdown on the day-to-day operations. Numerous people have reportedly gone missing recently, and just as many are going insane. Others claim to be hearing strange noises when they're alone, and others have claimed to see unknown non-human entities in the corner of their eye before they disappear. It's got everyone concerned for their personal well-being, but a job's a job, so they just keep trucking along despite the warning signs. Meeting with the scientists, we discover what's really going on here at the base.
You must let me get this communication out. They have to be warned while there is still time. I can't let... You don't know what I've seen. You can't possibly understand or comprehend.
The devil is real.
I know. I built his cage.
I'm getting abnormal readings here. This is bad.
God!
We can't hold these levels.
We're losing it! Help us!
Structural integrity at risk.
The demons of hell are back and ready to consume more UAC personnel. Like the Lazarus Way from 2016, numerous staff were immediately turned into mindless zombies, whose only directive is to fire at their own men. The Marine is then commanded to regroup with Sergeant Kelly to figure out what's going on. Along the way, the radio is going haywire. Gunfire never lets up. Zombies are heard groaning, soldiers screaming in pain, with numerous callouts and military talk all sounding off as the last few survivors try to hold their ground. It's a truly horrifying experience. Just as horrifying as the demons themselves. All the classic demons like the Imp, Cacodemon, Mancubus, Lost Soul, and all the others are still here, although Doom 3 has made them more fleshy and alien-looking. The zombies are incredibly varied as well, reflecting the various staff stationed here at the base. Other new enemies include demons like the Cherubs, Ticks, and the Sabbath, although outside of their design there is very little difference between them, as their thirst for humans remains consistent. Around this time, the Marine will also run into Bravo Team. While not incredibly significant, one member of their team is a part of the Lost Missions expansion for the game, which begins at this exact moment. The Marine of Doom 3 will see their final moments as they're preyed upon by the demons of hell. One member of their squad seems to have survived, also named the Marine. The Marine of the Lost Missions DLC then comes in contact with a Dr. Richard Myers. Dr. Myers worked with Dr. Betrayal on teleportation technology, but he became increasingly more concerned with his work, eventually realizing that Betrayal wanted to create a portal from hell directly to Earth. Having learned that someone is nearby and actually alive, he asks the Marine for his help in stopping Betrayal's plans. The issue is that the teleporter is located in Hell, so the Marine will have to go there to stop it. After taking a trip through Hell, and even a Martian outpost in Hell, he activates the portal and defends it, so that Dr. Myers can do his job. Dr. Myers then overloads the device, which shuts it down, while also sending the Marine through the portal, so they aren't caught in the explosion. While this is happening, our Doom Marine from the base game makes his way to the admin sector, as he overhears a conversation between Swan, Campbell, and Betrayal. They are under the assumption that Betrayal was the cause of this, further insinuating that they'll be putting a stop to this madness immediately. The Marine then follows the footsteps of Swan and Campbell while trying to rendezvous with Sergeant Kelly. Upon making it to where Kelly was last seen, he gets on the comms, congratulates the Marine for being tougher than he looked, only to drop the news that he is the only one left. None of the other Marines had made it, and 99% of the staff are dead. Sergeant Kelly then requests the Marine call for backup. They need to get a message to the fleet back on Earth and tell them of the situation. As the Marine works to get the message sent, he is blocked by Swan, who says that doing that would endanger all of Earth. Turns out, he was right. Once the Marine sends the message back home, Betrayal, now revealing himself to be the main antagonist, claims that that's what he wanted this whole time, as Hell now has a one-way ticket to Earth. What's happened here at the Mars base will happen to Earth, all because of the Marine. This offers up the question, did Kelly mean to betray us, or was he simply outsmarted? It's not entirely clear what his motives are other than assisting the other survivors on the base. He does end up corrupted by Hell's influence later in the game, leading to a boss fight. But the jury's still out on whether Sergeant Kelly had simply succumbed to the powers of hell, or willingly let it take him over. Prior to that happening, though, the Marine will make it to the Delta Labs where Sergeant Kelly was located, only to learn that the meetup point was compromised, and that he's moved to another location not far from him. But as the Marine makes his way through the various levels of the Delta Lab, he finds Betrayal. Chasing him down through numerous portals, the Marine ends up trapped and sucked into Hell. Compared to other Doom games, Hell this time around is less a brightly lit lava pool, and more like a dark dream-like realm. Peering over the edge shows no bottom, just an endless void that stretches to eternity. It also seems to toy with perspective and rational thought. The Marine can be seen falling, only to be trapped into a cage. Walls will randomly open to reveal the next step in the path, although the architecture seems rather ancient. Blocking his exit is the Guardian of Hell. After its defeat, the Marine then acquires the Soul Cube. With the object in hand, the Marine can then now recreate the stone tablets and use the Soul Cube like the hero did to defeat the demons of Hell. As he steps out of the portal, he'll be greeted by Counselor Swan and Jack Campbell, who were attacked by Sergeant Kelly, both of whom suffered severe injuries. He'll also meet Kelly soon after, who's been corrupted by Hell and turned into a monster. Before his death, though, Counselor Swan mentions how Hell wants Earth. They were there before, but they lost it in the dawn of time. As I discussed before, it's theorized that the Martians have fled their planets and came to Earth, thus making them the ancestors to humanity. This comment about Hell landing on Earth and losing it could be referring to them going after the Martians when they fled. Once through most of the facility, though, the Marine passes through the dig sites that houses all the Martian data and artifacts, before reaching the Hell portal. Guarding it is a cyber demon. Its defeat signals the end of the invasion, as the portal closes, stopping the attack for good. As the game comes to a close, the fleet that was called by the Marine has made its way to Mars. Thanks to the Marine's efforts, though, the fleet wasn't attacked by Hell, although the Marine is clearly shaken up by the invasion, having had to not only fight Hell itself, but having to reconcile with the fact that just about everyone died except for him. But while many people died, he did survive, and thanks to him, he saved countless others from being counted amongst the dead. And who knows, maybe this will show the board the flaws of the UAC. Yeah, right. The final scene of the base game showed a mutated Dr. Betrayal, who's now turned himself into an entity known as the Maledict. But nothing came of this transformation for some time, as the game ended right there. The rest of the story picks up from the Reserruction of Evil expansion. Set 2 years after the initial invasion, research within the base is now being run by Dr. Elizabeth McNeil. She was the whistleblower who emailed Counselor Swan about Betrayal's activities at UAC. The reason she is alive is because she was actually being transferred to another position on Earth around that same time. As the game begins, McNeil is overseeing a group of soldiers called Red Team, who are investigating a signal somewhere within Site 1 of the base. She's been leading excavation teams throughout the sites in order to uncover more about the ancient civilization, but people seem to be rather concerned for their safety. An audio log left by someone says that it's happening again, in reference to the invasion. One of the researchers was also reported in saying that with all the recent procedures and extra security, that they are worried that it's happening all over again. So it seems like news about the invasion from the base game was unearthed, although it's unclear how many people actually know about the attack. After blowing open a wall, they find a secret chamber that prior researchers never unearthed. Inside it is the artifact. This artifact activates the portal to Hell and kills all of Red Team, except the one who touched it, also called the Marine, although not the same Marine from either the base game nor the Lost missions. This entirely different Marine then works his way through the site and meets with a researcher named Dr. Cloud, who's working with Dr. McNeil to understand the nature of the artifact. Prior to their meeting, the Marine picked up an old artifact called the Primitive. Looking at the tablet, Dr. Cloud is able to deduce that the artifact is an ancient weapon of incredible power. Its true potential, however, lies within the hunters. Betrayal had sent 3 hunters to retrieve the artifact, but their souls also power the heart, giving the Marine access to more powers, like more damage and speed. To power the artifact, you must point it at a human soul, which is then consumed and taken into the artifact. This certainly has some interesting implications, as if the Marine is consuming the bodies and souls, what happens to them? They've already passed on, but does that mean that they are stuck in the artifact, or stuck in Hell? Did the Marine just damn a bunch of researchers to Hell for eternity? Through the analysis, they also learn that the artifact is what caused the invasion, acting as both a weapon and a portal. As long as it remains in their dimension, there's always a chance that it will be reawakened, just like what happened with Red Team. Meeting with McNeil, she tells the Marine that he must go to Hell and destroy it there in order to stop the invasion. To go to Hell, the Marine then uses the same portal our other Marine from the base game used when entering Hell the first time. But to get the portal online, different systems around the base need to be shut down, so that the power can be rerouted. Once complete, the portal is open, and Hell awaits us once more. Betrayal, however, isn't going to let that heart be destroyed, and if anything, he wants it returned to its rightful place, which is among him and his army. So he fights the Marine in a death-defying battle that will determine the fate of the world.
Marine, welcome home.
Elizabeth then calls out to the Marine in his final moments, welcoming him home. However, it's unclear if any of this is real. The Marine may have succumbed to his injuries given how brutal Betrayal's attack was, and McNeil was not in hell when they fought. Further, one of the systems that needed to be shut down for the portal to be powered was life support. So it's entirely possible that McNeil sacrificed her life. Whether the Marine or McNeil survived is unclear, but Betrayal is most definitely dead, and the world has been saved. Yet again. Next up is the Worlds of Doom RPG. The canonicity of this game is also quite suspect. The original website for Doom RPG, which has been long since taken down, states that you reprise the role of the Doom Marine made famous in Doom 1, 2, and 3. This would mean that Doom RPG is connected to the previous Doom games, while also claiming that Doom 1, 2, and 3 all share the same protagonist, which thanks to Doom 2016, we know is no longer true. Even then, one could possibly say that this is still canon to the Doom 3 side of the timeline, and possibly even after Doom 3. The first game takes place on Mars again, and Doom 2 RPG is in a UAC base on Earth and the Moon. But once again, I'm really grasping at straws here, so whether this is connected to Doom 3, connected to the main timeline, or its own thing, I'll let you be the judge. Doom 1 RPG starts with an unnamed Marine who's come to the base on Mars in response to a distress call, coming from a research base on the planet. It doesn't take very long for the Marine to run into the forces of Hell, who have made the base their new home. For now, the Marine clears out the junction, so it can serve as a base of operations for those among the staff who survived. He'll then be tasked with clearing out each of the 7 sectors of the base, to fully bring the base back under UAC control. He frequently comes in contact with a Dr. Guigard, one of the head researchers at the base. While he may just be another friendly face amongst the staff, he's actually a demon known as Kronos. Mirroring the reincarnation of Dr. Betrayal, who later becomes the Maledict, this UAC scientist becomes Kronos. But they needed to hide their true form, so they assumed the form of Dr. Guigard. Kronos' plan was to open a portal from Hell into our world, and let the demons loose on the world. He was also helped by another scientist named Dr. Nadira, who at the time was busy testing mind control on animals. It's unclear though if this was simply all he was doing, or if the mind control was being used for other more devious purposes later. Regardless of the intent, neither outcome ever came to be, as Dr. Nadira was betrayed by Kronos, who had him killed by demons once he was no longer useful. The only one who seemed to have caught on to the betrayal was Dr. Jensen. He was supposedly fired weeks ago but still remained at the base and continued to do work. He was then later caught and apprehended by UAC staff at Dr. Guigard's request, as he was claimed to have been snooping around the base and stealing equipment. Working with Dr. Jensen, both him and the Marine chase Dr. Guigard throughout the base. They eventually corner him before he reveals his true form as Kronos. As Kronos lies defeated, the Marine rushes to the portal, ground zero for the initial invasion, and shuts down the devices that are powering it. But right before it's closed completely, a cyber demon hops through as the last line of defense. But while this may seem like any other cyber demon, this specific cyber demon has long fought men like the Marine before. Doom RPG may not fit neatly in the Doom canon, but it fits right alongside Wolfenstein RPG's canon. Main character BJ Blazkowicz is also involved in his own conflict, but the final boss of his game would be the Harbinger of Doom, which is a cyber demon. After its defeat, it says that it will return and fight his descendants. So it's assumed that this cyber demon from Wolfenstein RPG is the same one in Doom RPG. This would also mean that our Marine is a descendant of this timeline's BJ Blazkowicz. But like his ancestor before him, he too stops the cyber demon and saves the base from total annihilation. The rest of the plot continues in Doom 2 RPG. Set a year after the first game's events, numerous occurrences have started propping up on many UAC bases. Our invasion on Mars was just one of many, it seems. Not much is known about the details of the prior game, as much of it was kept under lock and key. Besides, there is another threat that demands our immediate attention, and that's another UAC base on Earth's moon. 3 people were sent to investigate: Major Kira Morgan, Sergeant Stan Blaskowitz, and Scientist Riley O'Connor. Either of them can be picked for protagonist, as it doesn't seem like the choice matters outside of player preference. Once they make it to the base, they meet with Caldex, an employee at the base who gets them up to speed on the events that have transpired. Simply put, there's demons afoot, although how they managed to get here is unclear. Whoever isn't chosen goes through the base their own way, while the one that is chosen stays behind for a bit. They then make their way through the base's various stations, killing demons along the way and assisting anyone they can while they try to get to the root of the problem. Terminals throughout the base suggest that something is going on with the computer systems. Energy spikes are happening frequently, and power is being diverted and rerouted to other places. This is due to an entity known as Vios. A virtual icon of sin, Vios is a sort of demonic AI that was able to infect and control most of the base's computer systems. Our AI assistant Sal is even struggling to maintain control of her systems thanks to Vios. It seems as though Vios came about thanks to the scientists at the base. While its origin is unknown, we do know that many of the scientists here are intimately familiar with the demons of hell. Some of them are seen locked in cells ready for testing, while scientists is surprised to learn that we also know about the specimens. An email in-game also shows us that Dr. Wagard is in talks with Dr. Xanax, the nature of their conversation likely relating to the demons he held captive. Dr. Xanax and some of the other staff had also carved a dig site in hell in order to capture these demons as well. So it's possible that Vio snuck through their systems, or their rigorous testing on hell's forces, combined with the demonic powers of hell, had manifested or corrupted an already made AI, leading to Vios' creation. At the very end of the game, the main character fights Vios numerous times in its computerized dimension, before eventually delivering the killing blow in the exact way you'd expect, with a rocket to the head. But as the game comes to a close, the main character senses that this is only just the beginning, as while the battle today has been won, the war is far from over, bringing an end to Doom RPG. This means that we've now officially finished all the Doom timelines, and yet there is still more Doom out there. Not all of it was worth discussing, however. In 2019, John Romero, one of the creators of Doom, created a game known as Sigil, with its sequel, Sigil 2, in 2023. These are considered the unofficial episode 5 and 6 of Doom 1, taking place after he beamed down to Earth, but before the events of Doom 2. While John Romero is one of the original founders of Doom, so if anyone's work should be canon, it's his, it's been largely ignored by id Software in terms of canonicity, and as classic Doom games go, Sigil was light on story details anyway, which is why I chose to ignore it. Doom VFR was a VR title that takes place during the events of Doom 2016. It follows a scientist who sort of survived the invasion by being projected into a robot body. I didn't cover this game because I, hilariously, couldn't play it. Users of virtual reality can oftentimes suffer from motion sickness due to the mind believing that you're moving despite standing still. I have horrible motion sickness even on slower paced games like Metro Awakening, so you can imagine that this feeling would be heightened when playing a fast paced game like Doom. I barely got 2 minutes in before I got sick and had to sit down, so apologies for that. There's also a plethora of comics, novels, and movies that accompany the games as well, but many people consider them not canon to the main timeline. Doom already has enough on its plate with the games that are canon. Adding in all this extra media that most probably don't care for would be a massive headache. But the beauty of Doom has always been its interpretation, and ironically, lack of any official answers. Sigil may not be considered canonical, but given there is very little story in the classic games, you can absolutely fit them in your own headcanon. Many have even speculated on the other connections between Doom and id's other series Quake, further wondering if all of the id Software titles are connected like Wolfenstein and Commander Keen. But what's most fascinating to me about Doom is its consistency. I feel like we've talked about the same kind of invasion at least 4 times now, but there really is a beauty in that. Within Doom, there's always going to be a UAC, always going to be a hell, but there is also always going to be someone who challenges them. Time and time again, hell has tried and failed to defeat humanity only to be stopped by a lone soldier, a single marine who gave it all he had to save his home. If hell represents the blackest pits of darkness, this lone soldier is the light in that darkness. It's always been known that humanity's indomitable spirit is what keeps them going. This idea that no matter how tough it gets, there's always a way out, always a solution to the problem. And this soldier is the embodiment of humanity's greatest qualities. There's always going to be someone who stands up to hell and fights for the betterment of mankind. No matter the planet, the universe, the dimension, or the timeline. And no matter what title he goes by, Doom Guy, Doom Marine, or Doom Slayer. He will always be there to greet hell at their doorstep, because he is humanity's greatest soldier. He is the savior of mankind, because he is Doom. Thanks for watching. Thank you all for watching today, and I hope you enjoyed. I've been wanting to talk about Doom for a while, so I'm glad I finally found the time. As always, like the video if you enjoy, and subscribe if you're new. Check out the other story content on the channel, and thank you to my returning viewers for coming back to another video, as well as the patrons who continue to support the work I do. Take care everyone. Goodbye.